Thank you all for coming. But first we're going to start with the presentation of the colors, so would you please stand? Post the colors.
Colors, forward, march!
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say, does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave?
Bears, ready, to.
Please join me at the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Colors, right, shoulder, arms.
Retire the colors. Retire.
Colors, turn, march.
For an invocation. Please join me in prayer. Father in heaven, we give you thanks for this day that you've given us, the freedoms that we enjoy, that come at significant cost and sacrifice. That's why we're here, to implore you to give us your wisdom and your grace and the healing knowledge that we seek. We ask you give you thanks for the answers you've given us in the past. We pray for answers that your will be done will be provided to families who desperately need them. We ask your blessings. Thank you for the safety for those who traveled here, and we pray for their safety in returning home. All these things we ask in your name. In the name of Jesus Christ. Amen. Amen. Please be seated. Thank you, everybody, for coming. A special thanks to Ann and Aaron and his team to put this together. It was Herculean. There was not a lot of time to do it, and apparently DC is mostly shut down for everything else that's going on in the world. So much has changed in these past several years. It's been sheer will and determination just to pull this meeting off in such a short amount of time with such few people, and again, we thank them. When I first joined the board, I just wanted to ensure that my dad's file was being included in the VESI missions and that it was being investigated. I told my mom that perhaps the best we could hope for was a verification that the shear pins in his ejection seat were still in the aircraft, indicating that he died in the crash. But after a few board meetings, I came to realize there was hope for more, that more was possible. It was through working alongside all of you that I come to understand its depth. You showed me that this mission is not simply about policy or process. It is about people, loved ones whose absence is felt every day, and families who have carried uncertainty with courage that inspires everyone who meets them. Over the years, I've watched this league do extraordinary things. I've seen us push for accountability at the highest level of many governments, ensuring that the POWMI mission never slips into the background. I've seen us champion agencies creating cutting-edge scientific tools and technologies in forensics and pathology that once seemed like science fiction. I've seen us build partnerships, sometimes solely, sometimes against the odds, that open doors to answers we once thought were out of reach. Incredibly, those partnerships eventually involved our former adversaries, and some of whom are more responsive to us than our own government. Present company excluded, and you know who you are. But what has moved me most has been the way the POWMI mission has created a meaningful connection within this country with veterans, active duty, their families, and to perfect strangers. They see our efforts to educate this country on the truth of Vietnam and that the selfless sacrifices that were made for the right reasons. We tried to advance the slogan, "We've got your back," during the Gulf War. Veterans and active duty understood it, as did their families. The way you refuse to let any family walk this path alone is another thing that this league has done. That spirit, that fierce, compassionate, unbreakable spirit, is the heart of this league. It is what has sustained this mission for more than half a century. But we are at a crossroads where our efforts towards public diplomacy and engagement has become the institutionalization of fullest possible accounting, facilitated bureaucracy that reluctantly shares information and provides general situational awareness of their accounting efforts. You remember, we used to have governmental operational briefings. Case studies were conducted by specialists and analysts intimately familiar with the Vietnam War. Now all cases reside in the database and are accessed upon request and only when they're needed. Now they provide conversations and opportunities of storytelling and assurances of high-level commitment towards even more conversations. You'll have to let me know because regulations dictate that I'm no longer invited to personally engage in those conversations on site. I'm sure that this change in process is regular. I've always believed in this mission, even after my dad remained repatriated in 1988. I believe in the breakthroughs that are coming. I believe in the new generation of advocates rising to join this work. I will always believe in you and your refusal to never give up. And I pray that at some point, elements of our government will again not resent our watchdog activities. Instead, will act as a willing and collaborative partner in fulfilling an honorable mission. I also hope that the League will continue to increase its capacity and sustainability to further accomplish its mission. So this is not goodbye, this is simply a transition. I will always carry this mission with me and ask me to go back to my original position as the Idaho State Coordinator, which I will do. And I will welcome acting as an advisor whenever needed. I will always carry your stories with me and will tell them to whoever will listen. I will cheer whenever a family gets an answer. Thank you for your trust. Thank you for your courage. Thank you for helping to create a proud and honorable legacy as a tribute to our missing loved ones. May the day come, God willing, and soon, when every family will be able to reconcile themselves to the sacrifices they and their loved ones have made for the cause of liberty. Thank you, and God bless all of you. I'm going to turn it over to Aaron. Give me a donut. I'm sorry, Aaron.
Americas, yeah.
But this is going to be an introduction of the 26 to 28 board. Well, all of you, you know who you are. Please stand. Right?
Yep.
Okay. Thank you. Well, we should say their names.
Yeah. That's what I was just
Go ahead.
I don't know, is this working? Yes.
Yep.
Okay. Oh. Over here is Colonel Ed Sykes, and he is one of the first two associate members of the league that were legally elected to serve on the board of directors. And that never happened before, but the families, you guys all voted for it, or the overwhelming majority did. And it's because some of us family members just can't last forever. But Ed Sykes is a rare exception, and he has also was elected by the board of directors to serve as the vice chairman of the board. So that's Ed. And unhappily, our new chairman of the board, Caroline Johnson McCall, developed pneumonia. Called me last night to inform me, the first call, she was still at the doctor's office, and they told her she wasn't traveling anywhere. So she can't be here, she cannot give the speech that she was supposed to at the annual government briefings representing the league there, so she won't be there either. But she said to be sure and say hello. All right, and here is Lorraine Hubert Larson. She is the secretary of the board of directors, a longtime member of the board. Behind her is my son, Stephen Mills, which I'm very grateful that he was willing to be a candidate for the board. This is Bruce Hallberg, son of Bruce Hallberg Sr. there. Very familiar with this issue because of his dad and because of his Aunt Ann Hallberg Holt, who serves on the current board of directors. Behind him is Nikki Chopsky, and she is the other associate member who was elected to the board of directors, a longtime friend of ours, very active in the northern states, particularly riding motorcycles, spreading the word, and doing a tremendous job of public awareness. And over here is Fred Pringle. He is on our current board, re-elected as the finance chairman of the league too. So did I hit everybody? I think I did. So thank you all, and thank you for running for this board. I am very proud of the work that you are doing and the work that you will do, taking over for all of us, just as I am of Aaron Alstrom, our extraordinarily talented new executive director. His only weakness is not knowing history. So it's up to all of you. He is an archivist and a superb archivist. He's going to finish our archival research project with George Mason University, and he's very talented in today's technology. He keeps developing new processes even to work on our archives. So he's an incredible asset. We're very grateful to you, Aaron, and now you've had your other donut and your cup of coffee, so you can come speak. Thank you all. You can get through all right?
Sorry?
You can get through all right,
Yeah.
okay. Oh, you're gonna sit down and talk?
Yeah. I can come up and
No,
No, I'm just teasing you, I'm just teasing you.
Awesome. Yes, I want to thank everybody for coming out today. Obviously, we're doing things a little bit differently this year. We're trying new things. If you have anything that you really enjoy that we're doing this year, or something different, please let us know, and we'll try to facilitate that again next year. Or anything you don't like, let us know as well, and we're going to try to accommodate that. Try to make every annual meeting.
Jeez.
Try to make every annual meeting going forward as accommodating as possible and better than the last. You have a coffee incident.
Wanted to commit suicide. It's okay. It's okay.
Awesome. I want to again thank everybody for coming out today. I'd like to again welcome the new board. I want to thank the old board and the new board for being so patient with me as we all kind of learn to fly the jet learn to fix the jet while we're flying it. I know it's sometimes what they say. So
What is the matter with you? Leave it there. Leave it there. Yeah. Okay.
Awesome. Wonderful. So what I'm going to talk about today is the way forward and talk a little bit about ongoing projects within the League too. That's our previous archival effort and then archival efforts going forward and ways that we think that we can make a difference going forward. So in general principle, the way forward, I think, having seen this issue grow over the past 3 years that I've been with the League and looking at it from my perspective, is that there's clear segments of time, clear decades where the most progress is done, and those times are when the US government, the League, and the US public are all working in tandem. And unfortunately, I don't think this will come as a surprise to many. This is one of those times where it feels that the goals and objectives of the US public, the League, and the government are not aligned. So what exactly does everybody need to do? Everybody has a role for us to realign our goals. I think that there's a lot of signs of hope. There's clear indications that everybody wants to cooperate with each other and work with each other. But I guess I would say our inputs and outputs are misaligned. When one group, whether it's the government or the League, tries to make a suggestion, it's either interpreted a certain way or it's not effective. I mean, I think, again, this will not come as a shock for anybody, but after about 50 years of hearing platitudes, it's hard to get behind supporting policy decisions or internal arrangements at DPAA that feel like platitudes or cannot be ensured that it's actually going to result in concrete accounting results. I think also, just again, after 50 years of, I'm sure many people in this room have seen efforts by the US government that are halfway measures, or they misinterpret sites, or, I mean, I think that we'll hear about this a bit today, is, the evidence is sort of circled back from the governments of Southeast Asia and presented as new evidence when it's things that we've seen before. So there's clear effort that all of us are trying to work together. Now, what can each individual party do? I think the League, first we needed to look at ourselves and say, what can we do? I think what I've proposed and what I'm pursuing is, I think leadership in the next generation is a long-term game. So what we have now is the internship program, beginning to call it the League Leadership Program. I want to thank all of our wonderful interns today for helping throw this together. But introducing not just POW MIA accounting to the next generation of leaders, people that will work at Department of State in the next 10 to 20 years, people that will work for DPAA in the next 10 to 20 years. Not only getting them familiar with the issue, but getting them familiar with the nuance. So that's going to be a lot of the admitted criticism, the policy mistakes of the past, the operational mistakes of the past, and ensuring that that doesn't happen again. Again, this is a longer-term bet. It may not see its return until we all get a little bit of gray hair and enter the U.S. government. But it's one that I genuinely believe. I think another thing that the League needs to do, and that we are pursuing, is not just live streaming for the first time, but reinvigorating our social media presence, reinvigorating our media presence. The League has a duty to project all this information to the U.S. public. The U.S. public is very receptive to, we'll say, counter narratives or adjusted narratives because it's more accessible than the League's content is. Now, the League shouldn't shy away from the nuances and technicalities. This is a complicated issue. Everybody in here knows that your case is complicated and has probably been filled with things that don't align with a positive narrative. And we need to convey that message to the U.S. public rather than just, again, platitudes of the past 50 years and positive messaging. So the League has a responsibility to create engaging public relations materials, whether that's to the U.S. public, whether that's briefs for people in state governments, whether that's for the federal Congress. The League needs to really heavily pursue our public, not just presence, but the quality of material that we're putting forward. And I think the final thing that the League can do and that we will pursue is, I think that there is, again, there's some hesitation that the league needs to be ready to answer the call if it's DPAA or if it's DIA or whatever entity it is in the future. If they need more analysts, if anybody in the US government needs something, if the league needs to help cut red tape that's preventing us from getting actual results, the league needs to be ready to use our platform to say, how can we help the government? When I was originally writing this as a speech, I was referencing back to John F. Kennedy's quote of, what can you do for your country? What can the league do to help the government do their job more efficiently? And again, that comes with some hesitation. After 50 years, we want to know that if we fight for more funding, fight for more analysts, it's actually going to be used responsibly. I know we'll hear quite a bit today about proposals that help improve transparency, help make sure that money is being allocated in the areas it's supposed to be allocated in order to achieve more efficient results. And that is what the league can do. I think the American public and the VSO community at large, I think, has pretty readily bought into the hopeful messaging that the government provides. And so the American public has a duty as well to be really receptive to times of quite frankly, criticism. We need to move forward with, again, projecting nuanced, occasionally critical material and inform the American people what's happening. This is obviously a unique political era we're living in. I think that the American people are ready to hear that the families are waiting for answers after decades and that this is unacceptable and that we need to do anything we can, or the government needs to do anything it can to really move forward in terms of getting results and getting answers. And finally, I think, there's the question of what the US government can do. Again, I try not to focus too much on this one example, but I know, I believe it's both of the field activities in Laos were canceled this year due to the price of fuel. And, if this is, if we want to treat this like a serious wartime effort, I would love it if the US government, DPAA, whoever it is, could come to us and say, this is the price of fuel, how can we rectify this right now? Why can we, if we can delay this just 1 year until the price of fuel returns, there's nothing that's going to stop this from being delayed another year, and then another year, and another year. The government needs to be willing to come to the American people and to the league and say, how can we quickly rectify issues and ensure that things are getting done? Otherwise, it's just going to keep getting put on the back burner and put on the back burner. So that's those three pillars: the U.S. government, the U.S. public, and the league. And when we all can align our goals, we can move forward. We've seen it happen many times, the 1980s, the 1990s, early 2000s. There's plenty of times where all of the interests are aligned. And when that happens, we see really substantial results. There is kind of a fourth pillar in the room that's a little bit harder to work with, and that's the governments of Southeast Asia. I mean, functionally, they have control over their archives. They have done this. Again, I'm sure everybody in this room has seen this. They've either withheld evidence or they've manipulated evidence. They continue to take advantage of this. And I think if you do look at it from their perspective, when you're a country that has to respond to a global superpower, you do anything in your power to advance your position. And there's clearly promising signs. We are now in a comprehensive strategic partnership with Vietnam. I don't think in 1970 anybody could have perceived that we would have such an arrangement. Tolam seems very forthcoming about cooperating with the United States. So now is the time that the United States can exert that pressure and say, if you want to be our ally, you have to do more. You have to be more forthcoming. We need to continue to exert that pressure on Cambodia and Laos as well. But I mean, functionally, they are their own independent governments. We have to be aware of that. We can't control what their internal politics are. The only thing the U.S. can do is exert its power and its, I don't want to say force, but we need to do whatever we can. I mean, humanitarian cooperation and bilateral cooperation is what has moved this issue forward over decades. And that is the way that we need to continue to pursue it, is a completely humanitarian and bilateral cooperation. But we need to put our foot down sometimes and say, either you are withholding evidence, you are asking for rates for field excavations that are exorbitant, whatever it takes, we need to put our foot down at some point and say, we need to move forward in a really comprehensive way, otherwise we're going to have a problem. And the families are going to have a problem because things will continue to get delayed, whether it's price of fuel, whether it's excavations, whatever it is. So that is my kind of path forward. It's really based on principles of building the league and building league leadership and informing statesmen of tomorrow, stateswomen of tomorrow, anybody that goes into the U.S. government, informing the U.S. public at large to be more aware of what's really going on here. And then also finding ways to cooperate constructively with the U.S. government. Again, I think that there's plenty of room for improvement. I think there's plenty of bridges that can be built. It's always a better option. It elevates everybody to build a bridge rather than to continue to butt heads. But we just need to sit down and we need to really hammer out the details. And again, after 50 years of platitudes, we need trust that they're actually going to go through with what we suggest. Or whatever both parties agree to. So with that being said, I'd like to move on to the topic of archives as well. So we are completed with our main archival collection. It will be going to George Mason University. We have an additional few boxes donated by the late Richard Childress that will be included in the collection as well. Really awesome, fantastic historic material, and I think that it moves our position forward in a lot of ways. I think when it comes to what's in the archive, I think I'd like to speak to that first. There's people that ask, is there information about my missing relative in the archive? There may be, but it's not to the extent of evidence. If it is, it might have to go through a classification review, so that may not even be publishable. But for the most part, it is organizational league records. But a lot of it is policy dialogues throughout the 1980s and 1990s. And again, when it comes to this messaging of teaching the American people and teaching leaders of tomorrow, access to these it's not just, IAG briefs from the 80s and 90s, it's Anne's handwritten notes, it's Richard Childress's handwritten notes. It's a really unique way to get into the head of what people were thinking on the ground at the time. And that's going to be informative to whether it's independent scholars, whether it's people participating in a league program, to really familiarize themselves with what were U.S. diplomats thinking, what were Vietnamese diplomats thinking. I think the main thing to take away from that is the history itself. They say those who don't learn history are condemned to repeat it. If we find out that we've been going in circles and someone has brought up this topic or pushed this topic before 50 years ago, it's probably not a good idea to keep repeating the same point for 50 years. There's a lot that we can learn from what was happening on the ground at the time. Also in the archives, there's lots of just public awareness and public relations material from the 1980s through the early 2000s. I think that can really inform the material that the League puts out going forward. We can look back at what worked, what really resonated with the American people, and build materials off of that. I think that clearly we have to find ways to modernize it and digitize it and make it more accessible. I think I've been experimenting with Throwback Thursdays on the social media, occasionally posting some archival material that I think is really compelling and really helps convey the seriousness, but also sometimes just the sense of community. I mean, that is one thing that's very clear in the archive itself, is the sense of community that the League and just the movement at large had for decades. And so trying to recapture that and trying to re-enter that into the U.S. public's consciousness. The third thing that's really common in the archives that I think is not something we particularly think about, but it's a lot of information about the progress of DNA identification and what was being done in the labs and how far that technology has come. I think that's maybe this sort of undercurrent that sometimes gets left out of the conversation, is how much the League and the families and everybody has really increased the US's capability of DNA identification and DNA research. It's really clear there's this entire scientific field that's grown out of that. And I think that's quite commendable, and I think the people that are really into the history of science and the history of genetics and this sort of research will really benefit from it. You know, it's not typically my first interest of history, but I think it is really fascinating, and I think a lot of scholars will really appreciate how far that has come and being able to look back at that. Again, what is not in the archives, there's unfortunately not case files, there's not details of crash sites, or if there is, it's limited, and it's probably not anything that you haven't seen before or could find filing a few FOIA requests. That being said, one of the other things that I wanted to talk about that's associated with archives is one of the programs that we're putting forward, which is the Open Source Intelligence Repository. So it's a long word, I just say OSINT, but we're putting together effectively a database that anyone can access where everybody can share archival materials, personal materials. I would love for families to be able to provide their testimony into these articles. Effectively, you could think about it as a giant Wikipedia clone where people can edit it and upload, and it's very accessible. And it's not only accessible for independent researchers. You know, I would hope it would provide insights that either DPAA or DIA could pull from. It's just this large, completely public repository of all archival information, all personal information. I think, again, everyone in this crowd has had experience where there's things that may not be factual evidence, but they're insights, they're insinuations, they're things that the family members have picked up over the decades. And time again, that evidence tends to be right, or pretty damn near right. And so being able to provide that testimony and keep it cataloged along with all archival records is going to be really valuable. I think that, again, this is not just for the families, this is not just for independent researchers. Ideally, the government would have access to this and use it, and hopefully would find some pretty comprehensive findings. You know, something I think I'm going to have to name drop Lorraine. Something Lorraine said, I think 2 years ago, that's really stuck with me is that you are your own best advocate, and that nobody knows, maybe I misquoted, but nobody knows your case better than you do. You know, again, time and time again, the family members know their case. Unfortunately, whatever entity it is in the US government that will get swapped out, you know, the analysts are gone within a few years. You get a completely new case analyst, and they have to relearn your entire case from the ground up. Nobody knows your case better than you do. And so I think with the creation of this open source repository, it would allow you to collect and centralize all of your personal case information and help both analysts and the US government familiarize themselves with the case. But I think, unfortunately, it's also just about getting it on the record. You know, we aren't getting any younger, so there is a necessity for, you know, if you want to keep the things that you've gathered and learned about your case alive into the future, the way to do that is to get it on the record, get it into a repository where it can be accessed later. So I think this is something that I anticipate really building out through the next few years, certainly the next year. And so I may call on all of you to help me develop it, and we can see where it goes. And I really am optimistic. I think it will be, there's this sort of, I'm going to use some technical terms, but emergent properties of the internet and of open source intelligence in general, where this sort of just collection of people and collection of information has a really positive way of finding the truth. It's maybe not a clear way, it's maybe not a centralized way in the way that we typically think about it, but it is really impressive what a lot of unrelated people can do when they all condense evidence into a single location. So with that, I will go on a slight tangent, but I will circle back into the topic. I wanted to make a point about the venue here today, the Lyceum. It's from 1839. It's about to celebrate its bicentennial. So almost happy bicentennial to it. But the idea of a Lyceum is basically a public format for dialogue and for education. It's an idea that originates in ancient Athens and then in the early American Republic. And the idea is that this is a place for the public to gather, to have dialogue, to debate, to basically pursue the truth as a means of civic identity, as a big focus of advancing our society, providing a place and a platform to make dialogue and debate and everything like that. So I encourage you to dialogue and debate today, and maybe help move our mission forward a little bit further. And I hope that you do learn a lot today. I think that the panels that we have lined up will be informative and really provide a lot. And with that, I just want to again thank the board, thank everybody for being patient with me as we continue to move forward. And Anne's laughing because she knows I'm a smart ass too, but she has to deal with it more than anybody else. So I thank Anne for her patience as well. And something that you all have probably heard me say before is that when God needs something done, he sends a Texan. So glad to respond.
Well, thank you, Aaron. And I did want to comment on a couple of things you said, because they are very important, and especially to the family members in this room who know the importance of having to receive your approval before personal information is released. The families who provide information have to give their approval, including to DPA or others who want to get your personal information. It has to be up to you to release it. So always keep that in mind. Anything that you don't want made public doesn't have to be made public. You can still contribute to the thinking process without personally identifying it. So that's just important to keep in mind, and I can't wait to hear more about this open source repository project, because it sounds like it has some real potential. And it's just not familiar to me. I'm too old to know anything about that. But I did want to have a couple of things. One, he mentioned so many important things that we know about.
I stole all your talking points.
No, I've got something to say sometime, but that's later. I'm going to do the wrap-up remarks, and you know how bad that can be. Because I have absolutely nothing to fear from anybody. They already know I'm going to tell the truth as I see it, and I'll give justification for that. And if they don't like it, too bad, so sad. I'm going to be 85, and do I care? Not at all. So, makes it easier. One thing that he said about 50 years of this kind of conversation taking place, it didn't used to be that way at all. And he knows the difference, and it didn't come across the way he meant it, but the close working relationship we had from the early years until at least 2010 were very different from the recent decade and 15, 20 years going back. So we want the kind of relationship and dialogue and confidence in what's taking place that we were able to have in earlier years, because they were being more honest with us and trying to implement what they said was their highest priority and what they started with. Remember, all of this started with Vietnam War accounting and the pledge that we got, even when we, the League, adopted it, the right thing to do, the World War II and Korea War cases. That was because any country should do that. And those years you could not identify remains. Families were notified their relatives were dead. They accepted it. You believed everything the government said. That's number one. That's not possible anymore. We all know that. But it was, they were notified. So they knew they were dead. What they couldn't do at the time was identify them. Now, the manipulation of language is such that DPA puts out information saying they just, quote, accounted for Sergeant Major Oatmeal from World War II in 2025 and 2026. No, they didn't. In most of those cases, they dug up the known dead that couldn't be identified, and our nation has done the right thing by trying to identify them so the impacted family can have the proper military ceremony to honor and remember their loved one who served our country. We all believe in that. That should not detract from the priority they promised on fullest possible accounting. That is the League's founding language. It is in our 1970 formation documents. It's in every single thing, in the Congress, in POW, everywhere. The objective is fullest possible accounting. That came from us. May 28, 1970, when we were formed. Never forget that. So there's a lot of differences. It's like when he said now is the time, oh, is it ever? It is absolutely the time because of this advanced communication capability and the kind of capabilities that Aaron and our interns and all those forward-thinking individuals in this room, many of you, not including somebody like me, but it offers an opportunity to be able to share the truth with more people and get more people who can be effective to help us. And some of them are sitting in this room, and I will introduce them in a minute, but that are here with us. And we do need to take advantage of that time. And one of them, now I won't have to say it this afternoon later, is Brad Taylor from DIE Stony Beach. We proposed that, and it was agreed to by the guy who is now the General Secretary of the Communist Party and President of Vietnam, To Lam. He approved it that day, March 14th, 2024. It was held up, just started implementation the first day in country with our Stony Beach team. And you'll hear about a lot of this afternoon, so I'm not going to go into detail. But the first day they went to deploy was June the 16th this year. That's 2.5 years. How many people do you know that are parents or elderly sisters and brothers of somebody missing died in the meantime while the EPA was purposely holding it up? And I know they were purposely holding it up. So I'm just saying, there's a lot of things that time can't fix or change, and certainly they can't change the disappointing behavior and policy and principle being implemented now by DPAA, which is not a priority on Vietnam War accounting. There is no question about that. But we'll hear more about that later, and you have a right to hear more about that. So just remember, listen for that too. We used to work closely with the League. It was an invaluable relationship, certainly with all the VSOs. I was just talking to the Military Order of the Purple Heart earlier. But we're going to get together and have a Veterans Service Organization roundtable. We would have this year, except things have been a total scramble in trying to pull this together and get all the different things that Aaron has had to deal with. But the VSOs need to be more fully engaged. And I used to meet with them all the time at the American Legion building. They housed our office for about 20 years. I started as executive director in the Legion building, and they've been very cooperative ever since, but we still haven't been able to pull together a Veterans Service VSO roundtable. We need to, because they need to understand where we're from, and we need to understand exactly what they mean with their policies, and are they up to date and relevant? Are they just cooperating with the BS they're hearing from, excuse me, ladies, from DPAA? And so we need to get that understanding. There are several things that he raised that we need further definitions on. So that really is all I wanted to say, except I did want to point out there's some people here that need also to be introduced on, and they'll be speaking to us later. And one is Tours of Duty, Amanda Rutledge, right here. Just stand up and turn around and wave, Amanda. And from Tours of Duty, and her friend and helper in Tours of Duty, Mark, yes, right next to her. She's from Boston. That's what I was trying to remember. She's from Boston. And then there's somebody else here that's really important to all of us because of what he represents. And I know he's going to kill me when I ask him to stand up, but Mike Island is in the back row here. Mike, would you stand up, please?
Oh, it's so hard now.
That's Mike Island. the reason why he's important is his tremendous roles throughout the Vietnam War, many of which I know nothing about and didn't need to know much about, but I've known him for years, and he's currently also a very heavy hitter in the Special Operations Association and the Combined Committee of SOA and SFA, along with Tiltmeyer and a few others, but and they're close friends. All the good guys are close friends. And they are. So I'm just really happy that you all are here too, and that we can look forward to the Special Operations Association convention. Hopefully they've gotten rid of the criminal betrayer whose name doesn't have to be spoken right now, but he started Mission POW, so that will give you a clue. And Brad Taylor, of course, is back here, and he represents Stony Beach and DIA. Without them, I would have no confidence in what the government is doing right now. Stony Beach and DIA tells us the truth. We may not always like what they say, but they do tell us the truth as they know it, and we know we can count on it when they say it, because they're not going to lie to us, including about they're finally doing the interviews. They will tell the truth. It doesn't mean DPAA is going to like it. They postponed and interfered with, he may not say it the way I do, but they've interfered with a lot of things that we've tried to do with DIA. So DIA is our closest one. Every time I go over there, and I did again recently to go see the chief of staff, and I took Amanda and Aaron with me, and walking through that building, it's almost scary to see how many directors of DIA and how far back they go that I've worked with. It's a frightening prospect. You go in and you see that long hall of all those directors. Stephen's been there with me before too, so he knows exactly what I mean. But talk about feeling like it's time to leave and be less visible. This is it, boy, and I will soon. So I just wanted to comment on those things and appreciate and how much confidence we have in Aaron and why. And now you see why. He has a lot of good ideas. One of them I sure want to know more about, but we will find out. So, and thanks, Aaron. That's all I wanted to say. Are you ready for the next forum now?
Sure.
Okay.
What's coming up is
Oh, we're still early.
It's still
It's not even 11 o'clock.
I know, we're just
Oh, okay.
going through this. Okay.
Then, you want me to go ahead and give my...
Well, there was some comments I wanted to make
Okay.
about what Aaron is saying, is that all through my lifetime in this organization, and it's been almost most of my life, but we're talking about the need for maintaining pure government and what do you call it, pure reliance upon the government's input to this thing, and families, dutifully followed that for all these many decades, and rightly so. We're supposed to be able to do that, but as Aaron said, nobody knows your case better than you do. But there's also a matter of being able to go through and looking at to see cases objectively. And I remember seeing just recently some film where Kelly had been asked a question regarding case files, and the lady, I don't know who it was, sitting next to him, she chimed in and says, well, they don't have case representatives that are exclusively with your case. It all sits within the database itself, and so an inquiry or something comes in, maybe new information, they just go in there, whoever's in the queue to take the call or take the research question or something like that, will go to the database and pull it up. As Anna said many times, we don't have pure Vietnam War specialists. They just go into the database. It's my understanding. Maybe that's not entirely right, but I picked that up directly from her words, that you just go in there, you access the file. So some of that has been sitting there untouched for decades, hasn't been reviewed. Is that a good thing or bad thing? Well, if like any bureaucracy or so, if they're not compelled to deal with it, they're not going to waste their time. It's just going to sit there and wait for something to happen. New evidence comes in, new information comes in, dutifully, archive it, catalog it, put it in, and add it to the file. If the family ever gets a chance to look at it or wanted to look at it, or they compelled to look at it, most of the time they just waited to the annual meeting to come up and have their case reviewed and would complain bitterly, well, nothing's been added, nothing's changed on there. Well, there's nothing to add.
Let me comment on what he's saying. It's much worse than I've ever even shared with you directly, and that is, it's because I know all of the former DPAA and DPMO and JPAC and all these others. We get together now and then. It's called the Old Timers Lunch. But we go back and forth, and they stay in touch, and they are more than willing to talk to me anytime I have a question. But even people who I know you're very familiar with were forced out, fired, threatened for talking outside of the circles that they were authorized. Even Bob Meigs, even Gary Seabow, real Vietnam specialists and real trained analysts. There's almost none of them left. And the rest of them are leaving because, one, there's nobody who'll listen to them about Vietnam War. Nobody wants, except for these guys that are focused on Vietnam War. And some of them have stayed on despite knowing they're going to be fired any day. And they've already paid their dues. But they really believe in this mission. And so it's very tough seeing what has happened in DPAA and knowing how few, very few, less than a handful of qualified, trained analysts, the ones that DIA has better capability for analysis than, and that's not trained analysts, they're trained intelligence specialists and collectors, but they're much more focused on Vietnam and what they learn and is it useful? What recommended action do we follow it up with? Than the vast majority of the new people in DPAA who don't have that kind of commitment. Now, that is not to say the wonderful people that go out to the field and do the digging and the attempted recoveries, all of them feel like that was the greatest honor they've ever had in their service and how important it is to them. It's motivational to hear their feelings about what they feel like participating in the recovery efforts in the field or participating in any way, really. And there are some guys that have gotten committed to it that weren't there 30 years ago that are now, and they're just as frustrated by the lack of priority and analysis on Vietnam War and preparation and focus, priority, and implementation. They are very frustrated by that. The other thing is, when mentioning Vietnamese cooperation, they're not still withholding massive critical data. They still are withholding some records. They have pledged to give them to us. To Lam, I've known for a long time, and he even intervened with the Vietnam Office for Seeking Missing Persons, called the VNOSMP, but they're the ones that do the negotiating for the costs and everything involved with our field operations and BPAA. The Vietnamese, To Lam intervened to tell the colonel that orchestrates all the payment to all the different ministries from all the money that comes in. PPA has been overpaying since inception. And the Vietnamese know that, but DPA knows that too. Their detachment does. Doesn't make them change their. They pay for the privilege of going in country. There's a lot of BS there. I told them a long time ago I would never be paying the amount that they pay to go for access to the country, to do both countries a favor, and to contribute monetary motivation to the people in Vietnam that are helping and the ministries that are helping, but not at the rates they pay. But To Lam intervened to go directly to them and told them, shut up and sit down, no more gouging on VIA's program. Now, that just got deployed after, not a final thing, but a lot of good negotiations they've done. It's up to him to explain what he wants on it. What I'm saying is that it's a lot better deal for the U.S. and more critical than what DPA's been doing or not doing, and they're planning very little for fiscal year 2027.
I want to add a comment to that in all fairness and stuff, because DPAA and their predecessors were all terrified of being cut off by the Vietnamese if we brought it up. They say, you don't like our fees, you're out. They'll shut it down.
And they're not going to do that.
And anybody, anybody in that position and stuff would not want to have that on their record where you went in there and you made the Vietnamese mad and now we can't go in now or ever more. I mean, they cut us off every once in a while just to prove a point, just to...
And then we shut them off and then they dropped it.
Oh, yeah.
So it's in their interest. They know it, and Tolan and President Trump are leading in that direction of tremendous cooperation between both countries, including trade, including, well, you name it. And that's the agenda for Vietnam that is being followed by former Minister of Public Security, and indeed, Ministry of Defense tried to put their guy in. Tolan said, not only no, but hell no, and put his own guy in. That was his former deputy, so that public security is running it. And they do work with their elected officials. Does that mean I agree with communism or their system or their process? No, not at all. But are they being helpful on this issue? In this case, it's a sad thing to say that I have more confidence in the integrity of what the Vietnamese are doing right now than I do in what the U.S. government is doing through DPAA. Now, that's something I never thought I would have to say. So, just sorry, go ahead.
All opinions expressed here, not in the next one. Because there was a article is out that talked about the new science that's out there, or the need for new science, and that the science that we're seeing now, especially medicine, is just a regurgitation of past research, where they will just do studies of past papers, and it's a whole business. It's a whole business regime as far as universities are concerned, and that government owns science and government pays for science that we have for the most part. And there is a need to not be afraid of having your paper or your research or whatever questioned by somebody else. Before, they would just use the same data and come up with the same answer and write a paper on that. But now it's a matter of, if we're looking to see in history about what history is going through and saying, okay, what papers are out there, what has been presented, to be able to say, no, that's not entirely right, because this is what we've always hoped, that our archives and the accessibility they would have across all spectrums, that we would be cited as saying, no, this was something that was reported or was a big deal back in 1971 at the end of the war, but in fact, this is what has really happened. And that's what we've always wanted to have the truth be able to say. When you look and see how Vietnam is taught these days, it's not taught. And we've talked about, well, the policy of containment that everybody endorsed up into the late 60s and things is now morphed into what the connotation of Vietnam is right now. And it's just a matter of an example of a quagmire. And that's what's brought up, and it's infuriating, and we could go on for days talking about that. But it's a matter of encouraging, and I know our realm of influence is not all that broad. Maybe not as broad as it used to be, but hopefully it gets broader to be able to say, go in and look at our stuff. Look and see what we have, because most of the stuff is eyewitness, pet families directly involved, being directly involved, negotiations and things that were, Dan was sitting at the table. The league was there involved with these kinds of things, and say, all right, tell us we're wrong. If we're wrong, show us what we were wrong, how that's concerned, and have the courage to be able to say, if we were wrong, oops, sorry, we'll fix it. Well, what is the truth as far as it's concerned?
I agree.
Will that help us will that help with the county? I hope it does. I hope, if it's a matter of going how much time it would take to be able to do that, but it's encouraging to say that Vietnam recognized that it was being the bad dog there, and were they embarrassed? Because Tolan, that's how he rose to power, was anti-corruption. So if that's what he saw, maybe some of those guys aren't working there anymore. But if that becomes the case, then we can feel confident that our sources are reliable, those cases are reliable, and if a family never gets an answer, God forbid, that they would understand. War is not a good thing. Bad things happen during war, and there's hundreds of thousands of cases of, like Ann was saying, is that there's an unknown that was there, that was buried, and maybe, despite, I hope that doesn't become a priority, but some families are getting answers, getting remains back. But there's one thing I wanted to pass on, I thought, that makes our function here very critical. Is that there's an elementary school, Mountain Air Force Base. It's a successor to junior high that was named after my father. And I volunteered in some of those classes last year. And third graders and second graders and kindergartners. And one day, one of the kids was saying something about his father was being deployed. And he said, but I can't tell you. So they're teaching operational security now to second graders and third graders about the need for that. But it was the feeling, it was something I hadn't felt for 60 years. That palpable sense that your mom and or your dad are going to go to war. And so that is going on right now. There are families, there's kids sitting there watching their mom and dad train for war. And so we are a legacy that hopefully will follow us going forward, and that, God forbid, we get into another shooting war, things will be different. And I think they are. That's a legacy we need to be proud of. It's a legacy that we personally invested our own time and resources and to make sure that this doesn't happen again, and that bad things will happen in war, and we want to do what we can to make sure families don't have to suffer as much.
I think one difference that's certainly going to be there is that we're not going to have the large numbers of ground personnel fighting each other on the ground. We have so much human-less attack capabilities. It's probably going to be whole cities that are wiped out, not just troops that are fighting with each other. But the nature of war is just changing, and everything is changing so much. So I did want to say one other thing about Vietnam's cooperation. And maybe it sounds like I'm a cheerleader for Vietnam, but I think I'm not. I'm too realistic about it, if anything. But when my brother got accounted for, and that he was buried, many of you were there at the cemetery when we had the funeral, the day after the close of our 50th anniversary annual meeting, which was a huge one. And so the funeral was the next day, and many people stayed over, which we were most grateful for. But my family never, ever thought my brother would be accounted for. Because you don't fly off in an F-4 of an aircraft carrier and disappear over the coastline of a foreign country, not knowing if you went on to Laos or went into, what happened to you. Nothing, no information at all. Well, then out of the blue, the Vietnamese found a fisherman who was able to provide information that led to locating an aircraft, and they got my brother, the pilot of my brother's aircraft first. And so I was in my office, which was over there we went over there on Glebe Road, the big ones that we had there. And I was sitting there, and they kind of called. They were going next door to another military facility next door. There was a high security one. But they wanted to know if I had time to talk with them for a minute. I said, sure. So they came over and sat down to talk, and Kelly McCabe was one, and the head of the lab, John Bird, was Dr. John Bird, was another one, and then their public relations guy who's a good guy who finally left out of frustration, and I didn't blame him. But they came in and then they were chit-chatting a bit, and then Kelly McKay turned over to Dr. John Bird and said, okay, give her the news. We came to tell her. So they told me that they had identified the remains of the pilot of the aircraft my brother was in. What I said was not really supposed to be said in front of the ladies in the room, so you men know what I probably said. And I was so stunned because we never expected it. And so then they had the pilot, but nothing on my brother. And he said, Dr. Bird said, but don't you worry about it. We're going to go back as many times as we need to until we get your brother. And I just looked at him and I said, wait a minute. You get one more shot to find my brother's remains in that location. You now know the location. One more time. That's it. Because if you don't, I already know what happened to him. I know where it happened, when it happened. That's knowledge that ends the uncertainty for the family. Period. So you get one shot. If you get him, it'd be great. If you don't, it's over. He's like, well, I don't know if we can do that. I said, John, you will be ordered to do it if you don't voluntarily agree. When I say no further effort. I want other families to get that kind of information that lets them know what happened to their missing relative, whether or not you get remains. Getting remains and having that wonderful funeral is very important and certainly well earned by everybody who's devoted their life to serving our country. But that's what he said. He said, well, I don't know if we can do that. And I said, you will. And I mean, people need to understand what you really need. And we never expected it. Now, why did we get it? Because the Vietnamese are a lot more knowledgeable and capable and think now longer term benefit, not just the income coming in to pay off the $3.25 billion they were promised by Nixon and Kissinger before the end of the war. I don't know what the total is now. I imagine it's a lot more than that we've paid since then. But they were promised that. They didn't get it at the end of the war. So, and Vietnam has changed its attitude about cooperation, and it's from the top down. Now, does that mean the guy that distributes the funds at the lower level is happy about that? No, he has less money to distribute. Oh, well, we're in a different kind of a relationship now. So I think the Vietnamese are ready and willing as well to make the accommodation and make some changes. That's why what you said about now being the right time, it is. Absolutely agree.
I have a quick point to interject that I think links back to what you both have spoken about, and that's the increasing sort of bureaucratic nature of this mission, and also a good way to inform the American public at large about what's going on is if people say, how does this impact me? We're all taxpayers. Ultimately, we are all paying for it. Even if someone knows nothing about this mission, their tax dollars are going to this. Nobody likes to see inefficiency in the system. If there's any way we can improve efficiency in the system, of course that's something that everybody wants. But a lot of people are not aware that the money that you pay is going to the not necessarily most efficient system. That's the nice way to say it.
Oh, that was nice. Very nice. It's so much nicer. That's good. I'm glad.
Questions or comments from anybody?
Yeah.
Please. Anything.
Right, wrong, or different.
You mean you guys have no questions? I can't believe that. I see.
Oh, yeah,
You
I'm
guys
just
do.
curious, Ian, if you're still pushing, the league is still pushing, to declassify stuff. I mean, that's the biggest hurdle we're still running into. It's
Are you?
50+ years
Yeah,
beyond.
all the stuff from Laos, our stuff has been reclassified. We were looking for NSA documents, signal intelligence, human intelligence, all the stuff in the area in Laos at that time.
It's still
And
classified.
It's still classified.
Did you file a FOIA?
And when we did, and when we went to pick it up, there was something in the box saying everything's been reclassified. So they got it.
You see, DPA is still-
Reclassified?
Reclassified.
Well, we can't.
No, you're not supposed to be able to.
Well, we're gonna resubmit.
Yeah, we're gonna put it to it.
Why is it such tight? There's all
Because
sorts of
they
stuff.
want to control the dialogue, the scenario, and the observations of the American people.
I understand that, but it's, we have an era right now where people want stuff declassified, all the stuff with the Epstein files.
Yeah.
And it seems like we should put a push on it. It's been over 50 years.
I agree.
Intelligence is classified, and I think the nation is hungry to declassify stuff. I mean, that's
Good.
something that's, but you also talk a lot about Vietnam and what influence did they have over the tens of Americans that were POWs at the end of the war in Laos.
Yeah, no. And that's SOA's primary loss area too, for the Maggie Song guys,
Yes.
almost all in Laos, in areas controlled by the
And-
Vietnamese.
And also like action reports from McBeesog, all of
Sure.
that stuff on the Ho Chi Minh Trail.
They're all classified too.
There was all of this stuff, and it's like it's really hard. to-
That's inexcusable. It's been over 50 years.
That's what I'm saying. It should be declassified. There's no reason.
I think
for
the
it
new
not.
board needs to consider, we were talking in the car on the way over here about the kinds of things.
Yeah, to
Marty,
me, this
Stephen
is,
and I.
and somehow the public appetite for declassifying is out there.
Yeah.
And it's like,
Good.
how can it be a focused message? Regional people talking with all of the veterans organizations and getting them to start saying all of this stuff. There's no reason for it, but it needs to be a coordinated assault. And
I agree.
Someone needs to coordinate it, but
We're-
then talking points, and then how does that get out, and then how do you get it to all the little people in all the different places?
Your next speaker that you're going to hear from is Amanda with Tours of Duty. And she and I have been working on a paper that goes to Congress to change the laws about I can't stand this. The reporting that should be made public and the things that need to be rewritten. And we're not sure of the origin. Keep in mind, the last 5 years have been the years from hell. And trying to even think about filing a FOIA for some documents that we already got all the money stolen, we got everything stolen almost. But it needs to be a coordinated effort, and that's what we were talking about on the way over here and Stephen, the one that had the other question back here, my son, also had some really good suggestions on the kinds of things that we need to be filing to get that kind of information. Because see, the league has never focused as a league on pursuing individual cases because there were too many of them. We wanted them all as full as possible accounting. So that had to be done individually. Well, I never even raised my brother's case to the Vietnamese, Lao, or Cambodians, never mentioned his name. And because I was representing everybody, so it would have been inappropriate. But I think what we can do is a coordinated effort, and I know we have some really good things that the board has already approved that we're going back to Congress on to ask for changes. If I had to, well, I don't want to say what my hypothesis or view might be, because this is on recording, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. I won't say the name of the person I think is responsible. I'm being broadcast, so I don't want to be sued. And she's
The world is watching.
yeah. But I think that there were deliberate changes that may have been made and written and orchestrated and taken care of that now govern in why DPAA is so comfortable doing things like you just said, reclassifying or refusing to declassify documents that should have been by now declassified.
Is it DPAA, or I believe these things are reclassified to the NSA. And it was all the signal intelligence. And it does say NSA on there.
That's it?
Yeah, and they recorded all the radio communications.
Yeah,
They had
yeah.
translations of everything that was in the area and all that
And look
stuff.
how long ago that was.
Yeah.
And all the equipment they used is no longer even
No, that's what I'm saying.
I know.
It is, but
I
it's
know.
just,
Well, I mean, which makes no sense, everybody would realize, is that signal intelligence from 50 years ago,
Has no.
No, I agree, and human intelligence.
Yeah.
As,
Most of the sources
right
are
then.
dead. Yeah.
Yeah.
Sources, but, yeah, anyway.
But it's, yeah.
But we're talking about going to other governments'
And what-
archives,
and
but
that-
our archives
It's
have,
ours.
ours has.
That question.
I agree. I
That
think
question.
we really needs to get into that and start filing. And Stephen had the next thing, and then Bruce Hallberg.
Sure, I just wanted to say that, and that's a good comment too. So I'm looking at what's the incentive for the government or anybody to change. Before the league, really this movement happened in 79, 80, the government didn't have any incentive. It was the grassroots, we want to get answers, and that's when the government, Hollywood, all these different people started to come on board. Everybody got on board. But then when the normalization happened, right? The league had to reinvent itself again. What is our purpose? Given that there's normalizations happening, now what? I think right now you're at a point too, it's like, what is the incentive? What is the incentive for the government, DPA or whoever, to change? And so that may be some grassroots, other ideas, but they're not gonna wanna change because they get all this credit for all the different wars, all the different reasons why you just laid out. But we as family members and we as the league need to be honest with ourselves that it was a war a long time ago, but there are still people alive. There are reasons why it's important today. I don't have them all, but we need to think that that's one of the good reasons, but there are reasons why it should be alive today. It's a unique war. You are not forgotten, and that helps with recruiting, that helps with all the different, it's a uniquely American situation, system. So you need to kind of capitalize on that and then push on the grassroots and also government officials and where the budget is. DPA is not going to move unless they feel it's important to. So I just want to make a point of that. It's changed over the years. I've seen it change over the years. And the league had to reinvent themselves to say, okay, now this has happened. What are we going to do now? And so it's hard to stay relevant today, given it's been so long. Technology changes, other wars, all that, and we're not going to have mass people out there. So people are naturally pushing it down the priority list because people aren't around, that kind of stuff. So we need to think about why is it important, very important today, and keep that alive.
Well, the reclassification is clear, and there may have been a high-level direction to reclassify, but it was because of the need that Department of War and Defense had to support this humanitarian issue, because they know if we get charged up, boy, it can really be dangerous to them. And I think what you're suggesting is something that the new board of directors needs to clearly look at and go after, including filing of different papers, different actions, legal actions, restraints.
Yeah, but also, when we would show up for these, people, we would show up a day early. Mm-hmm. And that day early was spent on the Hill. Mm-hmm. And there were, you go visit your people, you go visit, all of the, and like getting out and getting into that building. Mm-hmm. I mean, and there are some things that I think we did really well and we need to reinvent. And if people know early enough, they can book early and then, somehow have coordinated, something to go in to talk to your senators, congressmen, into their offices. And lay it out there because it's a perfect time. You've got people here, you've got supporters here, you've got, and then.
We need to do that again.
Once again, it's an all out, taking offense on it.
I mean, is it somebody?
Bruce.
Yeah, it's kind of a spin-off from what we're talking about, but it's the predecessor of DPAA. Used to have a vault in their offices, and in that vault was a master file for each of our MIAs. I've heard that we no longer have access as a PNOK to go in and look at that file. That's what I've heard.
Well, just a request
And
and
it's
see if it turns you down.
your own relatives' file?
Yeah, on each of the cases.
On each of the cases.
Master file.
Yeah, the master file, the open cases.
Yeah. And it used to be, you couldn't go during the annual government briefing, but like a month before or a month after, you could make an appointment to go. One person was allowed into the conference room. They would open the vault, bring out the master file, and you could go through it, and they would answer questions.
And now they don't.
I've heard that that has been denied now.
You need to test it again, or actually, Bruce,
Yeah.
Bruce 2, you do. Bruce Junior. Yeah,
Because if they turn you down, they gotta tell you why.
yeah.
They just say, no, there's no access to this thing. Whoa, 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 this is the same file that, you know,
That I
you may have looked at 10
3
years ago.
whatever.
What's been added that would have compromised sources and methods, or the source who did the classification feels, you know, compelled to reclassify because he has to protect sources and methods, which is the main reason for classification. And Brad can, you know, check me on that if not, but usually it's protection of sources and methods and need to know. That type of thing. But if it's a matter of, we don't want to spend the time to go in there, somebody has to take away from their desk and go in and hand carry these things and answer questions they don't have an answer to. They're embarrassed. They say, well, I don't know what's in here, or this letter. I remember those stories from our meeting. I had my letter that I wrote, 5 years ago isn't in the file. This is a bureaucracy. They lose things all the time. There used to be one.
So are all the individuals in that master plan?
They used to be, I don't know.
See, so that's my problem I have. I didn't know that existed.
I didn't either.
If I knew that, I would have gone after it, you know, so.
Yeah, I asked during the one-on-one in Omaha, and I said, well, I'd like to come back, make a trip, fly out, and go through that. And the guy goes, no, that's not allowed anymore.
Who said that?
It was a gal that was a doctorate, and she was taking over for Dane.
For Dane Lagoon?
Yeah.
So it was a lab person.
No, it wasn't a lab person. No, she was an analyst.
No, they only have 3 in the whole place. You mean, was it a PhD archival researcher? Or?
She was filling in because Dane couldn't make it.
I understand, but was she an analyst or was she?
She addressed herself as an analyst.
They all do.
I already analyzed.
I did want to make a brief point regarding your file. It's still not on the agenda that the League's going to be pursuing individual cases. We want to be as representative of all the families. But the one thing I was going to mention with the open source archival effort, what we want to start pursuing is assisting families and family members in their archival search. So whether that's assisting you in filing FOIA, it sounds like you've filed FOIAs before, but going back to that, maybe trying to make it a little bit more cutthroat, or putting sort of the League's weight behind the FOIA. Additional partners as well. Anything that we can do to help get a FOIA not only approved, but if we have to circle back and just keep going at it, that's a service that we want to start providing.
That's the other benefit of also doing the Veteran Service Organization Roundtable I was talking about. Boy, they are afraid of the VSO leadership. And if we can get them engaged in supporting efforts to go after what you're being denied, that pretty much guarantee it. You put it together with what we want.
It may have been coincidental, but between the intelligence assessment that we had done and the catastrophic effect that it had, and then the timing of that and Ann's direct contact with the government in Vietnam, whatever. But if it was a matter, to get back to what Steve was saying about the incentives as far as that's concerned. So if there was something that a specialist could be found, I don't know who that is, that would say, sources and methods that were used back in the Vietnam War are all now obsolete, and nothing's in there. And so if there's an independent opinion of some sort, and then you go, okay, besides just bereaved handling family members.
The Library of Congress is a perfect place for that stuff to sit.
Right.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
if it's anything in the bureaucracy, though, is that, as you said, the incentive, you either shame them into doing it, or you rewrite the regulations, or you pass a law. That's what gets bureaucracy to move. Otherwise, it just steadily goes through. It doesn't want to be bothered, and so they say things like, "Oh, we don't pull those things up anymore because we can go on file. But everything's been digitized, and I can go on file." So if you want to go look no need to go and spend the time and effort to go pull the file and look at, if you want to play with the papers and do it something like that. It just costs money. We have to take somebody off and they have to go in and sanitize it or whatever they need to do and say, well, okay, please just talk to an analyst and we'll put it up on the digital stuff. What question do you have? Well, I just want to feel good.
Were you just told this when you went this year to Omaha? When you went this year to Omaha, that's when you were told that it's no longer available?
Right. And I'll pursue that during this government briefing this year.
Oh, okay.
And ask her, put it in writing. Put that in writing. You cannot look at your file.
Yeah.
That won't happen, but you can ask them.
Yeah, I think that they quoted, what was it, about 10 years ago? They copied all the files that were heavily redacted and sent copies to the families.
Mm-hmm.
And at that time, I think is when they closed the doors as far as go see the unredacted files.
That was the common response too, is that about some of the declassification. If I recall, whoever classified it is the only one who can declassify it. And so you probably have some agency that done something that no longer exists. So they're saying, well, I need to have this declassified. They don't exist anymore. Well, we cannot declassify it because we don't have a successor that's been appointed that has the authority to be able to do that. And said, okay. But then they have to take the time and look at it and bureaucracy.
He would not leave as a bureaucrat, like you said, right?
Cut me, I believe, regulations. Questions, please, comments? There is hope.
Just the cooperation you talked about in Vietnam, it seems like Laos is still a black hole.
They're owned by China.
Yeah. That's the biggest problem with Laos right now. And we pulled all of our people out. There are no more American people at our detachment in Vientiane. They were all pulled out because the safety of the Americans assigned there was questioned by Colonel Matt Brannon, it's my understanding, Marine Corps, who was then the acting director for operations. So, and he had made this appeal because somebody driving a car had gotten in a minor accident and almost got taken arrested, and it was a U.S. official from the embassy who almost got arrested for this accident. And that was not, I don't know the exact details of this. All I know is because of that, the appeal was made by the United States, by the PAA, for them to have the same kind of safety protections that the people who went into Vietnam have in the embassy, or the same that the diplomatic representatives at the Lao embassy had in Vientiane. The Lao said, "What brought this? We've been doing fine all these years. Is anybody being harassed or terrorized, or what is all this about?" There was never a real explanation given, but that was used as the rationale by Colonel Brandon later to move all the permanently assigned Americans from DPAA out of Vientiane. They're now all assigned to Bangkok, and they go in and out. The only ones at the detachment in Vientiane are local hires who manage whatever bookkeeping and whatever they have going on there for when the field operations take place. Now the field operations have continued. Do you know anything further than that, Brad? No?
Well, it depends on what you're talking about when you say field operations. I mean, right now, we have somebody there operating on I guess it's a JFA, but it's kind of a very small one. But there's a field investigation ongoing right now in Laos. And to your point about Laos being a black hole, it kind of is.
Yeah.
And the reason, from my perspective, With the Vietnamese, you pay a cost, but at least you'll get some unilateral effort from the officials. In Laos, we get zero. They don't help us at all. The only thing they do is work logistics to get us from point A to point B. As far as cooperation is concerned, they don't dictate that. It's really the local governments where we conduct investigations that dictate how much cooperation they're willing to give us. And depending on which local government where the investigation is taking place, it's kind of hit or miss.
That's
And it's-
the provincial level, right? That's where the
Yeah.
power.
Yeah, really, the district level, even more so than the provincial.
Okay.
But the government of Laos is totally controlled by China, and everything is bought and paid for by China. And I don't think that, now, once we pulled our people out, it's not going to change. At least not for a long time. Of course, I haven't been there since 2024, but that is the way, and since we pulled all of our people out. But Stony Beach still goes in and out,
Yes.
but you go in and out of Bangkok.
Maybe.
No, well, yeah, from time to time, but also, we travel into Laos, I mean, from
Yeah.
Washington DC in this case.
Yeah,
So,
I think DIA has a better relationship than DPAA does with Palau as far as doing work. But anyway, it's pathetic. And then Cambodia is a completely different kettle of fish too. So, still controlled by Hun Sen and his very polished, effective son, Hun Manet. Everything is passed father to son in these places. Most of these guys now in office, I knew the fathers, not the guys now in office. That was passed along, father to son. So, any other questions?
Any other questions, comments?
I just want to comment, I think it's very high priority to look at things that can be filed, FOIA, requested, what we can be doing together, and to have a stronger position that you're coming from, and something that we will talk to the VSOs about when we can put together the VSO roundtable. That is really important to resume and to regularize and get the positions made known. Yeah.
I do have another brief point. I mentioned it today. This is a good space for deliberation and debate. But at the reception, I hope to see you all there at 6 o'clock. It starts. There's going to be an open bar, so I hope to hear a lot of debate and deliberation when the beer starts flowing. But the shuttle, I just wanted to mention that the shuttle will be going all day between here and the evening reception as well. So please come to the evening reception. If you run into any other family members at the hotel, at the DoubleTree, let them know that the shuttle's running. Feel free to extend an invite to them. We should have plenty of wine
And food.
and food, yes, I suppose, to keep the debate rolling.
If there's no other questions or comments. Oh, please.
One question.
Yeah.
That was, if you're gonna do a FOIA request, and especially when you're talking about an individual case or broad base, who's gonna make it? NSA, DIA, CIA, all of the above. How do you address that for all of it? Or are they just gonna say, well, if I go to DIA, I get X amount, NSA, X amount, CIA, X amount? Who are you gonna do that? Are the Department of the Air Force, Army?
I think if it goes to the Department of War, then they delegate it to each of the originators, the intelligence originators. If it takes individuals, we'll find out and we'll do it that way. But I think the board will vote that way. I think it's very important to do that. And if it has to go separately to NSA, I don't know. Would it be the NSC? Would it be the President of the United States? Who do we go after? We'll find out what today's current vernacular requires, which it keeps changing, so.
Aaron may be able to help us make the request broad enough so that the Department of War can't say, well, that's NSA. They're not in the Department of War.
Who do they
Make
work
it broad
for?
enough to get to everybody.
We have some interns and staff that are eager to start learning how to
Yes.
file FOIAs, so please.
And NSA, who do they work for then? The,
President,
just the president?
yeah,
Only the president, okay.
they report to the
I don't know.
president.
I,
The director of DIA reports to the director, to the Department of War. CIA reports to the president.
Hey,
So they're-
Mike Island, who does each of these guys report to?
NSA, DOD.
That's right. NSA is DOD. What about CIA?
President.
Okay. So the president for CIA, I'm sure it will be referred to CIA to answer for the White House, but that's just,
Let me modify that. It's actually for coordination purposes of OB&I,
oh, okay,
which is being diminished,
yes,
but practically speaking, it's the president.
yeah,
That's a good point.
yeah. I wish Tulsa Gavin was still there. That's just my personal opinion. The next guy may be great, who knows? I don't know. Well,
Questions or comments? If not, if we want to stay on schedule, we can take a bit of a break and start again at noon with Amanda.
and with Amanda, right? Good. Cigarette.
Okay, let's take a break.
Break time, break time. Since Amanda will be back shortly, we will go ahead and introduce Mike Marty first, and he's from Task Force Garrison. And I can't wait to hear him because I haven't heard this either, so it's going to be very interesting for all of us. So this is Mike Marty, and please welcome him.
Thank you. Normally I don't talk to the microphone, so I'm sorry if my voice is booming. I will try to moderate accordingly. My name is Mike Marty. I am the CEO and founder of an organization called Task Force Garrison. It is a Marine-centered nonprofit to help Marines like myself, Semper Fi, get out of our heads and out of our homes and out into the communities. Unlike many of the service organizations that focus on sitting in a bar and drinking and telling old war stories, we do that, we just do it outside. And it helps keep us alive, it helps keep us transitioning from that active duty Marine into the civilian Marines that we are today. Why I am here is because before I founded Task Force Garrison, I founded a thing to fight the anti-police movement called the Retired Investigators Guild. That is a nonprofit made up of men like me, 150 plus men like me that worked the majority of their career solving cold case and active homicides in major metropolitan cities across the United States. To date, we've solved over 60 cold case homicides and recovered over 15 young ladies that were victims of sex trafficking. Why that's important, I think, to this group is because Task Force Garrison and the RIG combine forces to focus on conducting investigations and helping return our warriors back home. Every one of those missing today in action are a cold case. And that cold case needs people like me and my fellow detectives and investigators who have spent our careers working homicides to be able to collect the information, interview witnesses, interview family members, and get to point of origin or point of fact in order to recover our warriors. And so I've got a lot of questions, and I know you do as well. I think this is a discussion, and so I'm the rookie here, I'm the new guy. As I said to my good colleague over there, I'm not from the government, but I am here to help. And we are a testament to who we are as Marines and as service members. that we still care, and we're willing to do this at no cost to anybody. The hardest job I've ever had to do is raise money for a nonprofit, and that is literally what I'm doing. Not here, of course, but in other places across the United States and around the world, but to help fund these endeavors. So when we work a case, we do not charge the agency for DNA results, for processing forensic investigative genetic genealogy, for forensic anthropology, or for the per diem and travel that we do. I cover all that. In fact, it's the only reason that I still have a corporate job today is to fund this nonprofit. So that's me in a nutshell, and I'll be quiet again.
Well, that was an impressive background statement and applaudable, and we're grateful for your interest. Before I introduce Amanda, since we have a little bit of time, then we'll have Q's and A's, and we will break to get our lunch when it gets set up and continue. But since you mentioned Marines so prominently, I want to again mention that I'm still working on and still counting on the Marine Corps project that I proposed to Tolam, and both the Marine Corps Deputy Attaché in Hanoi and I both think Tolam has agreed to provide that to the Marine Corps. And the concept was there have been many Marines that have written to actually the wrong ministries. They were writing to them and coordinating and talking with the ministries of Defense and Foreign Affairs. They don't call the shots in Vietnam these days. It's Ministry of Public Security. So that's why they asked me to get involved. And I did. And the first thing he did after the Marine Corps project came up was to intervene to save the people that our DIA guys were working with from gouging on implementing the mobile investigation unit that I just told you that went in country on that project on the 16th of this month after 2.5 years of stalling. Not the Vietnamese as much as the Americans were delaying it. But this project, the concept is that I had hoped we could get it to him fast enough so that General Adams, the new director of DIA, Lieutenant General James Adams III, he just got back from going to Hanoi, where he met with his intelligence counterparts. But he was only there very briefly. He said it was enjoyable and informative, so that's what I reported back. That's all I know about it. But I'm hoping to be able to see him at some point in the future, and even wrote him a note and said it'd be great if you could drop by the reception tonight and say hello to the families that are there here in Alexandria. I don't even know if he got it because I've been too busy with this. But if they did, the idea would be to have a dedication ceremony at the Marine Corps base in California for Camp Pendleton. And because this memorial, the things that they requested commemorated and were the signs for their Marine Corps base, Camp Federer, outside of Da Nang in Vietnam. And that's why they wanted. And then they want to try to do a big dedication ceremony, invite the minister or General Secretary of the Communist Party now and President of Vietnam and his leadership picks, and President Trump and Secretaries Hegseth and Marco Rubio and whatever, and have a big dedication ceremony at Camp Pendleton in the state of California. Sometime, if not before the midterms, at least before the next election, but to show that there's bipartisan support for this Marine Corps project and what we're representing it with our continuing accounting efforts. So that is still being worked. Haven't gotten any confirmation yet. Still waiting for it. So we'll see what happens. And now is up to Amanda here from Tours of Duty that I've been working with, and she's the one that the League is now partnering with for the things she's going to explain that we're going to Congress on to try to get some of this activity underway in the right way.
Sure. Thank you. And I'd like to thank the League for having us here today and for the partnership that we have. Is that better? It's gonna fall like last time.
If you're Mark, it's gonna fall again.
Yeah, I think it's headed that way. All right. All right,
Is it faulty?
we'll just leave it like that.
Well, it's gotta be pointed toward your mouth.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, all right, great. So, yes, CEO and founder of Tours of Duty. We are a nonprofit, and we're dedicated to search and investigation of our missing. Beyond archival research, which we have a phenomenal team for, we also go to the ground and we do the physical searches overseas. Like everyone else in the nonprofit, we do not charge the families for this service. This is something that we raise funds for grassroots. So we don't have any government contracts, we don't take any government money. This is all raised throughout the year. And I sympathize with you in what it's like trying to raise for a nonprofit.
So do I.
Yes. It's certainly a challenge, but it is a more than worthy cause, and we find a lot of support from the general public still when they're made aware of the mission, when they're educated about the mission, and how many are still missing and what can actually be done. There's a large volume of support out there. So as family members, if we can be of assistance, whether it's research, advocacy, or if you have information that you feel is actionable for us to get into country and do some research, we're more than happy to take that on also. And can meet with everyone afterwards if you have an interest in any of that. As volunteers, there are no salaries in Tours of Duty. Everyone is a volunteer, which means we have attracted some really passionate people who put their lives on hold to do this mission. They believe in it and they want to make a difference. Many Vietnam veterans, GWAT veterans, and everyone in between. So what we get are great results in the field because everyone is dedicated to making a difference and not for any kind of benefit.
Could you tell them why you put it together initially with the veterans and your work? A little bit about your background.
Sure. So I spent 4 years in Iraq, and then coming back from that with the group that I was with, we still average a suicide every 6 to 8 weeks. And a few years ago, sat down with some of the guys and said, you know, what is it that gets you to this point? And it's not any different than a lot of the research is showing right now, is that not having that same sense of purpose that they had when they served is a major impact to them. So we said, well, what can we connect our men to that would give them that similar sense of purpose? You know, and I like to joke that we're all too old, too fat, and our knees don't work anymore to go back and do the things that everyone did 20 years ago. But it really is a way to reconnect them to their core values. I don't know any veteran that wouldn't go back for a brother, and I don't know many that don't want that one more mission, one more time, you know, opportunity. So it's been a really great experience and renewed faith in what people can do.
Yeah, that's great, Amanda. I mean, that's, you know, one of the reasons that we have Task Force Garrison. You know, it is Marine-centric, but we take all veterans, all people, and all patriots. So anybody can be a member of Task Force Garrison. A very small membership fee, but nobody collects a dime in salary, and we all do it. Literally, as you so eloquently put it, that mission and purpose. You know, the generation that when I enlisted in 1994, which seems like just yesterday, our generation of warfighters went to combat, came home, went to combat, came home, went to combat, came home. We did that 26 years. And so those men and women that so valiantly served and came home and that mission was over, their formative years were spent in a mission-focused mindset. And we need now to redirect that mission into something meaningful. And what you're doing, is so tremendously meaningful, and I applaud you for that. And we want to be just like you guys. And I say, you know, for our nonprofit, if 1,000 other nonprofits copy what we do, that's awesome. Yes. Like, bring it, because then it increases the ability to get this mission complete. So thank you for doing that. It's awesome. I'd love to partner with you. Yeah, I mean, I'm a pretty transparent, open guy. I know it's in front of everybody, but like, whatever partnership you need. If you need a bunch of old homicide guys, sign us up. We're ready to go. And most of us are veterans. So.
Yeah, we welcome it. And as you so rightly mentioned before, these are essentially cold case files. Yes, and having those skill sets to investigate and move the needle on, you know, where do we go from here when it's been stalled for so long is critical. So I would love to partner with you and see where we take this.
Awesome.
Hey, we just created a new field operational process here. Partnership, yay. I think it's great. You guys ask questions. Let's hear. Yeah.
I'm curious, do you have much difficulty getting into country? It just seems like for DPAA, it's nothing but roadblocks. What's your experience?
Our experience varies across the board. Cambodia has been phenomenal to us, and we appreciate their renewed commitment to the accounting mission. They've been very good, very helpful. Vietnam definitely has a different layer of bureaucracy that needs to be navigated going through there. Sometimes it's hit, sometimes it's missed. But if you're acting in good faith and you're bringing the right information, you're going through the correct application process, sometimes it takes longer than you like, but the opportunity is there. So, does that answer?
Yes.
Yeah.
Have you had any experience in Laos, with cases from Laos?
We are still working on our authorizations in Laos, so we have not gotten in there yet. We do have a lot of archival research going on for some cases in the region, but we've not physically been into Laos yet.
But you're planning on.
We are.
And we need to talk about what are the obstacles you're running into, because maybe we can help with those.
Okay.
I don't get to talk to I learn something new all the time, so yeah, let me see what we can do, because I know all those guys and their fathers. Yes.
Amanda, is Tours of Duties focused primarily on the Vietnam War?
It has been predominantly on the Vietnam War to date, yes. We will take cases from other conflicts, but we find right now there are still first-generation witnesses, obviously first-generation family, and a lot that can be found on the ground. We wholeheartedly dispute that there are no leads left to be uncovered or nothing left to be found there. And that's just based on our operational experience in those countries.
And Marty, the same? Are the cases that you're working, cold cases you're working, are they primarily Vietnam?
Right now, we literally just launched this initiative. Well, again, I'm the baby in the room. But I will tell you from our cold case experience, working as a nonprofit in that space, that first generation, that first layer of investigative ability to collect the data, because what was collected maybe say in 68 and what is collected today in 26 could be totally different, but it needs to be memorialized. And so we've built a network, a framework on how in which we collect that information from witnesses and from potential suspects. But for this, in this it would be witnesses or those that have direct knowledge. And so what I've thought of, and I'm sure that the Tours of Duty folks have already done this, but it's part of Task Force Garrison. We've partnered with the Marine Corps Mustang Association, the Marine Corps Scout Snipers Association, and the MAC-VSOG Association. So all those men that are still alive, that have the stories, that have the data, that have the information, we intend to interview them and get the historical information, the geographic location, and the specific information in regard to those that are still missing, catalog that, and keep it in our system. That way we can then cross-reference as we build these cases for each of these missing, that we can connect the information that we have from here in CONUS and then what we collect when we begin to take tourist visas and go there, because if the government's not going to support us, I'll just do it myself.
Sounds familiar. Just a quick observation and maybe a comment for the room. We see the league evolving, and it has to, right? And we can't do things the way we did them 50 years ago, and relationships have changed, and things continue to evolve, especially as our technology evolves, and we need somebody like Aaron who's young and can do all these fancy things with probably AI and things. But I also recognize that in both of your cases, first of all, some of your mission is reconnecting veterans and police responders, first responders, to purpose and mission to help prevent loss of their life, keeping us alive. I heard you say those words.
Yes, ma'am.
So it's interesting that your mission then serves the purpose of the mission of these families, and I just think it's really interesting. We have a little organization in Idaho, POW Awareness Association. We are clear that we're not a VSO, not VSOs right here. And I just think it's an interesting evolution. that, you know, we watch some of our VSOs also struggle with membership. And I think it's obvious to me that the mission and purpose and the way you tie those back together is appealing in ways that maybe traditional VSO membership has not been appealing to you folks who have served and then come back home. And maybe you are members of your local posts and things, but I just think I recognize this evolution, not only in this organization, but evolution in how our veterans and those who have served want to stay connected to mission and purpose in new and different ways than what we have traditionally been able to use. It's just interesting. The whole thing, the whole world is evolving around this, and I just applaud your efforts. And I know in our own work that we've done, it is that mission that has that inspiration, the stories of these families in this room that continue to keep our members connected. And it's the passion, the incredibly passionate people that you've come across, and all those detectives and investigators that are also passionate. I hope the families realize that for all these years you probably felt alone and abandoned. I hope you know there's a whole lot of us out there that use you as our source of inspiration for the work that we're doing in all these different ways. So I just want to thank you guys.
Yeah, thank you. 100% correct there in regard to the traditional VSO. Right, when I got out of the Marines, I didn't have a choice. I was injured, so I had to leave. I didn't want to leave. So what do? I go to the American Legion halls, the POW, the Marine Corps League. It's not me. While I will enjoy a cocktail or two or six, sitting in a room with a bunch of older people than me, I enjoy, but that's not the space for, I'm in my 50s, it's a different collection of people, and that's, at least for Task Force Garrison, we do enjoy libations, but we also help guys that have problems with that, guys and gals, so that maybe addiction became their mission when they got out of the service. And so we help redirect that mission, that's a negative mission, into a positive one of get the needle out of your arm or the pipe out of your mouth and let's go into the woods, or let's go fish, or take a trip, or do something. And now it's taking that, and these are combat experienced veterans, to then help the homicide guys work together to then solve these cases is in my brain. And it's not to demean any family member here, but this is a case, and this is an important case. It's the most important case. There is no more important case to me than these cases here. And so, and I can say that having worked hundreds of homicides. These are very important, mission-driven, mission-focused cases that we want to assist and help with. The at no charge thing is a real thing. It's like, if families want to reach out to us, or tours of duty, or whomever, we just want to collect the data. We want to collect the data to help solve the case. I was speaking earlier, we've partnered with George Mason University, Ramapo College of New Jersey, Arizona State University, and other universities and institutions of higher learning to get their services, like forensic anthropology, forensic investigative genetic genealogy, and DNA services at no charge. Local law enforcement agencies, the DPAA, the government is not going to get that no charge service that we get. We get it because we're representing the family and the case that we're doing the mission for, and it helps solve the case and bring our warfighters back home where they belong. So yeah, I just want to make that comment on the point of the VSOs. Like it doesn't fit for everybody, and maybe this is what VSOs turn into, right? Maybe this is something that you get to still stay connected to the mission, right? You're still connected to doing something for our great country that we, and I still to this day would die for, that we want to still serve and protect and help. So, yeah.
Exactly. We find that people who have been spending their life and been conditioned in the service want to continue that service in one way or another. And we do something very similar also with getting veterans trained into different skill sets and categories so that they can use those in their post-military careers as well. Texas State with their forensic anthropology is one of our partners. They've been phenomenal, and it just helps continue that service for them. So it's really critical.
That's awesome. Yeah, I can put you in touch with Ramapo too. They certify IgG folks, so.
What's IgG?
It's investigative genetic genealogy.
Okay.
So if there's no DNA at a site, they can link the DNA through anybody that's done any sort of open source DNA, it connects it. Yeah, it's very cool.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Things just keep changing so fast. Go ahead.
Hi, Amanda. Could you speak to tours of duty's outcomes from their deployment missions around past conflict areas around the world, and also, second to that, any public cases that you would be able to share about challenges that you're seeing today?
Sure. So outcomes, we have, again, phenomenal dedicated people. We spend a significant amount of time investigating, going through many of the archives that you go through before we head out to the field. And we've had 100% in achieving our objectives on each one of our missions that we've been on. Now, that's not to say that that means that's a repatriation every time, but that does mean that we went there with a specific objective, whether that's identifying new witnesses, moving the needle in a case, whatever that objective is, we're able to achieve that every time and continue that forward. And, these cases do take multiple deployments and, multiple initiatives to come to a resolution. We have 3 cases that we've recently released publicly. They're on our website, toursofduty.org, if you'd like to take a look at them. They extensively outline how we arrived at the case, what the experience has been bureaucratically, particularly with the DPAA, and where we are in trying to finalize the outcomes of those cases. There's absolutely some significant challenges there, and I'm trying to be...
You don't have to be bad.
You're with family.
Yeah.
We said worse.
There are things that DPA does well, especially in their genetic testing, their science. They enjoy that, they're good at that. The investigative portion is where it's really struggling, and the transparency. We've brought forward a number of leads to them. We have brought forward, particularly in one case, which is on our website, for Richard Chorlins, and really have just been obstructed all the way around in trying to assist the families. And again, if you'd like to read in detail, they are pretty significantly detailed on the website. But definitely it's something that needs to be reworked and reevaluated on how these cases are processed and where information goes and who gets the final decision on those. At this point, I'm a firm believer that DPA should not be the end-all be-all for what gets investigated and what doesn't. One of the cases that we released on there, 1588, a live witness came forward 7 years ago, provided their information, which was an entirely new line of reporting on this case, had not been found before. For 7 years, that witness has not been pursued by DPAA. Tours of Duty has pursued that and worked with the witness. And the family still has not been notified 7 years later that a live witness came forward with new information. So, if you haven't asked for a case update in a long time, if you haven't received one, I absolutely would press on that and see what other information is out there, because it's not absolutely all not making it to the families.
I think visibility is something that needs to be shared broader too, right? Like this whole, as a veteran, I knew that this existed, but I didn't know there was such a depression in what was being worked, how it was being worked. And as a guy that worked cases, I was like, wait, you don't have detectives that work in this, like, where are the investigators? And I know they exist, I know they're there, but we need more. And I think the visibility and the literally pulling the curtains open and shining a light to say that we need to do this and this is why, and the discussion, not just here in this room and not just with the families, but bringing the families along and providing that information and then sharing it with community and letting community get involved and take action with us, I think is important.
Yes. From where we sit, the investigative side of DPAA is sorely lacking in analysts, in capability, in experience, and those are things that are better suited for the Stony Beach program. They have that, obviously, the knowledge, the experience, the history. They really should be the investigative engine of the accounting mission, and really driving what cases get investigated and how those decisions are made for pursuit. Making that decision from the scientific lab is kind of backwards. It's very backwards. The people in the laboratory should not be dictating what is actionable in the field and what isn't, because they're two very different things. And I don't have to tell you that, but preaching to the choir.
No, I agree. You know, the lab works for the investigator,
Right.
full stop. And it's not the other way around. There are times where the lab will give you a result that's different than what was expected,
Right.
but it's the investigator that drives the direction, the way in which the lab should work. And you know, to Stony Beach, I'll volunteer all my guys. 150 guys, whenever you need them, we're there, volunteering to you as well.
Thank you.
Like, whatever you need.
I think Bruce had a question, then I have a comment.
Yeah, Rebecca, you've used the word archives several times. Could you expound on that? Maybe list them, or is it on your webpage?
So I would put you in touch with a couple of our gentlemen who specialize in the archives. I would be lying if I said that I did. They utilize a lot of the documents from NARA, and I will say, going back to the investigative side of things, we did a couple of test cases, one being Mekwisag case that we're working on, where we took all the information in the archive and put it through our process of evaluation and what we thought the outcome was and what we thought we should be acting on for that case. And then we took information from men who were on the ground, men who knew the individual, and took their statements and evaluated it and came up with a very different, even location and outcome of what we thought. So I would say that the archives are definitely not the end-all be-all either for what's out there. The information that the families have, the information that the members, service members have that were with them is critical. And if you're willing to share that, that helps every one of these cases. Yeah.
Thank you.
But if you'd like more information on the archives that we use, I'll put you in touch with our gentleman.
Okay, I'll talk to you later.
Do you have a whole box full of cards?
Yeah, I've got cards, yes. I brought cards.
Okay, and you do?
Right, yes.
Okay, so now you know that this is the kind of individual assistance you can get, and she has not even explained the degree to which DPAA refused to accept information and documentation that Tours of Duty has tried to provide. Now, some of that is in the cases that they posted online, I think.
Yes.
I don't have time to go to their tours. Just talk to her. I'm too busy doing everything. But it is really important that all of you take these kinds of steps. You're having an offer here to try to help you investigate your own case with experienced professionals. And they're dedicated veterans. She started her organization to try to help these veterans, and this gave them the purpose. They're trained in field recoveries and other things that are necessary out in the field. Probably better than some of the people that go there that, haven't been as well trained. What I'm saying is the opportunity is there, and if my brother wasn't already home, of course I would go after it. In exactly that way, because that's the kind of help that is needed, and that I have not seen. The other thing I wanted to say is DPAA has already been pursuing its, and this is fine if it is recorded, I don't care who sees it or hears it. They have been working on their advancement into the future, and that is the advancement and the scope of their laboratory, which we helped build. You all in this room helped build and promoted and advocated, and their purpose is to extend that lab into the next 20, 30 years as the best identification and recovery laboratory in the world, and that is going to be the future of DPAA. Now, they'll probably deny it and say they're still focused on their operational priority of Vietnam War. Well, check their schedule. It's not true. So, my disappointment is that if that is the way they feel, then why is it they continue to maintain that it is their priority, and why is it that we have all these others doing the kinds of things that we know need to be done on these cases, but they're not? Or they're punishing and getting rid of the Vietnam War specialists that did serve and are still committed. I see them at lunch, not very often because I'm in California now, but it is there, and this kind of assistance and cooperation has been turned down 2 tours of duty, maybe not yet to you, but it has been turned down, the kind of information. And it's not the only one either. The same thing has happened with Glenn Hines. They turned against Jay Byth because he's the one that did the independent intelligence assessment. They consider Dr. Jay Byth our expert on intelligence, and turned against him too. So he's considered, was trying to indict DPAA, which was not the case in the intelligence assessment or the addendum that he did. It was on the Vietnamese archives. The Vietnamese know that. The General Secretary even welcomed Jay Byth's assessment of their analytical documents. So there's all kinds of things to this story that get it complicated. But if you're looking for individual help on your own case or something that you can ask for their assistance on, or you know what it is, now's the time to step forward for it, guys. And they have cards.
And we are going to, from a Task Force Garrison standpoint, I'm sure tours of duty, being the senior veterans in the room here, have already gone before our politicians to push on them. I fully intend to use the weight of our muscle to do the same, to push that narrative, because to your point, Ann, and to Sir yours about the archival records, look, I'd be a fool to tell you that the U.S. government has all my records. Forget about it. That stuff's gone, right? And so we need to maintain those records. We need to collect them. We need to digitize them and future-proof them so that they don't suffer a flood like what occurred in St. Louis to many of our service members, where all their records are gone. We need to ensure that that's being done. And if the U.S. government won't do it, then maybe we can help as an NGO to say, hey, listen, we're here to at least get the data, but then when we synthesize it, and you do what you guys did in regard to that Mac Esau case, I mean, that's tremendous. That is where the power of technology, and today with our investigators, that brings us up to an even higher level of excellence, to say, look, this is what was reported at the time of incident, this is what was reported from a first person living witness, and then this is what we recovered today, and do the analysis there. That's what analysts do, right? I'm all for analysts, they're great, love them. We're detectives. We collect the data, we do the hard interviews and the real digging, and the analysts synthesize that data. And so, that's interesting about the lab, and learning that is quite shocking.
It's one of the greatest disciplines I've had. It's the change in direction and the lack of integrity about what they're really doing, the distortions that are being published that change the language. Just heard another friend, a person here in the room, who received a call from DPA, notice from DPA, that they had located their son or their relative, located and accounted for. And what they've done is dig up the remains in the known location that they had been stored for many years and identify those remains. DPA doesn't report it that way. They report it as if they just recovered and accounted for. And I'm sure it's because the language in their regulations has been changed to allow them to say that the date of identification is the date that he was truly accounted for. And it just makes the record comply with, you have to have 200 or 300 or whatever each year, that kind of thing, that they have to abide by, so they can count 185 for World War II and another 70 for Korean War. They made their goal, and the number for Vietnam War, 0. And that is the kind of thing that's going on. Now, I want them to be, in 30 or 40 years, the best laboratory in the world. We built them for a good reason. They need high quality scientific recovery and analysis laboratories to do you praise them for it too, and they're good at it. What they're not good at is the stuff that BIA is doing and the stuff that you guys can do on the individual cases. And I'm sure glad you've got Aaron Alstrom here in the league to work with, because he knows what he's talking about with that stuff a lot better than I do. And a younger board of directors that includes people like my son, for whom I'm very grateful is willing to take over for me. Not for me, thank God, but at least to serve on the board and to serve the family. So, yes, ma'am.
I just have a quick question. Maybe Amanda or Ann, but maybe family members who actually can attend the briefings live. Has there been, I feel like you might have personal experience on their public-private partnerships. We've been hearing for a long time about how many private-public partnerships they had and how many they were hopeful to establish. I mean, I feel like this is a public-private partnership, but it hasn't worked apparently. I don't know if maybe the families have received updates on how is that going, because obviously there's some selectivity in the public-private.
The last report I got, and I've asked for an updated one, so has Aaron, on how many public-private partnerships they now have. That is, what's his name, Rocky Gillette? Yeah. Rocky Gillette's thing is recruiting more and more and signing up more and more partnerships. When we had one with them, nobody over there remembers that, but the reason why is they sent me 7 pages of control mechanism language, which of course I said, I'm not signing that, and made it into 3 pages of not as controlling, but very cooperative. Nobody's going to control what the league says, for God's sakes, that it's just not going to happen. So I got a signed copy back. We were a partner. Well, the head of the partnership doesn't even know that because they denied it, that they'd ever had a partnership with the league, to a public question that came up. But it's just fine. I don't care if they remember it. The last count I got, and we have asked for an updated list, Aaron has, I did too, and we don't have it yet, but I understand it's around 148 or more now. The last I heard it was 130 something, and then I knew they'd gotten more. But that's Rocky Gillette's whole thing is, and what do those partnership agreements say? I have no idea. But if they're half as attempted controlling as what I saw, there's no way I'd sign them. No way.
I don't know the exact number, but I do know that there are over 100 PPPs.
Oh, yeah.
And it's a very limited number that actually are allowed by DPA to deploy out to the field or to employ their services.
And they get paid, yeah.
Right. When we first started this organization, we went to DPA thinking that this was, a great opportunity to support them, asked them what they needed most in the field, what they needed most to complete their mission. They gave us a list of criteria of things that they were looking for. So we went back and we built a lot of Tours of Duty's original concept around that, trying to support the mission in the best way possible. And we went back and had another meeting after we established everything, established all the technical training that we wanted and all of that. And again, we also were not willing to agree to some of the controlling language, and they said, well, we have enough partnerships. So, and we offered no cost for our services, where a lot of the PPPs do get paid for their service. We said we will do this at no cost, and it was not.
And they turned you down as a partner, see? That's what I'm saying. It's controlling the language, and some of the language that we were just talking about when we went out for a minute. It is strictly to control, to say they just did this, they just recovered and accounted for somebody whose names were dug up, known dead, family notified years ago. Dug them up because now they have the wonderful capability of identifying and having the well-earned funeral and flag and the whole 9 yards. But that's a good start. That's positive. It's what a country should do. They should be proud of what they do by doing that, not try to disguise it as recovering and accounting today or this last 6 months ago for somebody that's not right. It's distorting the reality. Additional questions for these guys? There we go, Aaron.
I'm going to come up with Cody really quick. Just a brief interjection for the people on the stream. If you're asking a question, if you could come closer to the microphone where the stand is. That way people watching the stream can hear questions that are asked. And then the other thing I was going to mention is we did receive an updated list of partnerships.
Oh.
It's around 130. I haven't gone down the list and counted them one by one, but it's about 130.
Okay.
And if anyone wants to see the updated list, I can forward it.
Yeah, we'd be glad to make copies or post it on our website. It's fine. That way you don't have to look at it individually. What about more questions? Stevie?
I just want to make a comment, is that, it's back to the uniqueness of the Vietnam War and how it's impacted our us forever. And so, once you're a Marine, you're always a Marine, and people are, involved, and this whole thing and gives you an outlet, but that needs to be understood by Congress as well when you're going to talk to them, saying, they're looking at just this one board, EPA, or any other government agency. It's a unique one, and this is what it's shaped. It's almost like a full, it's a life cycle that never ends. It's unaccountable, full as possible accounting. Well, you took that when you were 18, and people are going to look for me. I'm going to be able to contribute later on. So it's created a whole movement. Kind of piggybacking on this woman's points, is that it has started something, and I think Congress needs to understand that it's not just, when you sometimes you don't see the forest beyond the trees. And I think when you're living this way, you forget what the bigger thing is like, we need to keep this, it's very, very alive today. And your reasons for it, and you're explaining why it's alive. So join forces, have people understand that I think people are just, well, it's an old war, it's not that. It's created a whole movement, and there are 10 swim lanes now created from that one war. And so those things need to be understood, and I think some government agencies you don't understand that. They want to keep it separate, each wars, but keep that understanding and explore that more. Peel back the onion. Why is it unique? What makes it important today? And for the younger people to hear that too. So.
I think a couple things to respond to that bring it to today. It's our flag that's flying over the White House today and around the world today. Even though DPA never mentions, it's the flag of the National League of POW. My family's not anymore. There's no reference at all to its origin. But that symbol that many of you have on your jackets or whatever right now, I didn't bring it. But it's visible. And the other thing is, people don't know, leave no man behind, okay? That really started during the Vietnam War. There's several things that started with the Vietnam War that are going to carry over, and there's never going to be the kind of ground troops slaughtering each other that we have before. The world's changed, war has changed, communications changed, leadership has changed, everything continues to change. So we need to look at how best to adapt to that and use those things that are positive reminders of the links between the wars, and for the veterans that are working with you and the guys that work with you. Clearly, there's a commitment to their fellow veterans that are not yet home, or they wouldn't be doing it. Whether or not it was prescribed by the doctor or, an evolutionary thing. So those kind of links are what counts, I agree.
And it's not just people over 50.
No.
I've got the Task Force Garrison Marines. We have some that are in their 20s that are like, hey, sign me up. We have a young scout sniper Marine that's like, how can I help? Multiple deployments. I want to help. And so it's keeping that alive as well with the younger generations, because you're right, Ann, and you are too, sir.
That's Stephen.
When we signed up and took an oath, it wasn't just for 4, 6, 8, whatever years. That is embedded in me for life. And I would argue that most service men and women, it's embedded in them for life, and that's never going to change. So if one of our brothers or sisters is somewhere where they need to be home, we're going to work to get them home. And that's why this, I don't know, it was like something that clicked in my head, why aren't we doing this? Full stop. Let's focus our attention on this to help, bring these warriors back home.
Good. Okay. No more questions for these guys. They have a lot of answers. Yes.
Yeah, you said that the DPA wasn't interested in taking information that you found for government. Did they give a specific reason why they wouldn't take the information?
One of the cases, which you'll read about on our website, was closed through a identification made through a bone chip the size of a fingernail that was submitted anonymously. We located where the remainder of his remains are and attempted to provide them. Their statement back to us was that it was a closed case and that they would not spend any more money on a case like that. And that was a very bitter pill to swallow. I understand that, okay, maybe there's a determination of death in that finding, possibly, but to say that you are not going to repatriate the remains of one of our Americans who literally gave everything because of your budget or your spreadsheet is really difficult to digest.
And that's just one example, there's many more.
I did want to speak to the classification information you were asking about earlier. Each agency is going to have nuances on how they want to see that submitted. You can find that on their website on how they want to see a FOIA submitted. And there's also federal guidance on how to request classified information to become unredacted. It's an MDR, and I have the information I can share with you. But you want to write those FOIA requests exactly to the way the agency has described it on their official guidance. You almost literally want to regurgitate their statements back to them in those requests, because that's what they want to see in order to approve either the release or declassification or whatever that is. And then also you will see there is a expanded use of CUI, controlled unclassified information, being applied to these cases. And I would argue that in many of those cases it is not being applied the way that it was intended by the federal government. So if you see a CUI redaction or they're withholding information under CUI, I would definitely file a challenge on that also.
Well, that's not tomorrow.
Yes, exactly.
Okay.
Controlled, unauthorized,
Unclassified.
unclassified.
Controlled and classified.
Right.
It's unclassified, it's unclassified.
Yeah. But they're doing it though.
It's being applied to withhold additional information at this point. There's one case that we're working on currently, and I just got a text message about a few minutes ago. The first 32 pages, and that's just very high level from narrow documents. 80% of the documents of 32 pages, 80% of that is redacted, completely blocked out. And 55 years later, that's a little too much for sources and methods.
We really like that black highlighter.
Anybody else?
Yeah, I have a question. Do you investigate over water cases too?
So we will do investigation. We'll do the research on it. We do not have subsea capabilities. It's something that we hope for in the future, but at present we don't have subsea capabilities.
Let's talk about it.
Yeah.
I know some people.
Well, is it known underwater caves? You know the location? Or deep sea or water?
Kind of, it's on the water, but it's deep.
That is a different kind of case.
So I have talked to some corporate partners that have autonomous capabilities with subsurface drones, because the drone technology, both in the air, on the ground, and underwater, has advanced significantly. They can exceed the limits of a human. So to be able to locate things at depth is something that we're working to partner on as well. I would be happy to, again, continue this discussion past the little short hour we have here, because I'm sure we could spend a lot of time together.
Yes. Where is it you live? You live in Florida. Where do you live?
I live right by Lake Tahoe in Nevada.
Oh, okay. It's a lot more pleasant to come to Lake Tahoe. Absolutely.
I don't know, Costa Mesa was nice when I lived there. So.
Yeah, it is.
But we can certainly take a look at it and see if we can provide any support to you. Be happy to do that.
Yeah.
The resistance you get from DPA, is that a chain of custody kind of issue that they end up having where they don't have assurances, or they're afraid that it's inadmissible based on hearsay or something like that?
I'm sure that there could be an argument there, but what we had offered, particularly in that one case, was we had asked their detachment to come out and make the recovery. And we weren't asking for an excavation or a full JFA. It was, here are the remains, can you send someone from the deck to pick them up? And the answer was no.
It'd be interesting to see that 130-some partnerships, do they have that assurances and stuff in writing that somehow that they will surrender or
they will bring them in and make recoveries in order to maintain that chain of custody. Because if I was a lawyer working for them, I would be concerned that it's not admissible.
Right, which is why we don't make the recoveries ourselves. We, you know, we don't do that physically, particularly for that reason.
But they can't live with it.
Wouldn't DIA though, if you held the scene and they came and took it over from you?
I would have to let Brad speak to that, but I think that there's something in the relationship that DPA is the one that is supposed to make that recovery, but I'm not the expert on that.
I think by regulation, the problem with EPAA going and collecting those remains or recovering those remains would be that they are going to be obligated to do a field forensic review with their counterparts, the Vietnamese counterparts. And there are instances, like in this case, where the individual who wanted to turn over the remains likely did not want the VNO-S&P involved. Mm-hmm. And that kind of put DPAA in an awkward position because they then would have to kind of give up the source, so to speak, to their counterparts. So there's some nuances there, but that's a requirement. They have to review all remains in Vietnam before they remove them from the country.
They have to have the Vietnamese review all the remains.
Correct. But it's a joint review. So someone from the lab and someone from on the Vietnamese side have to look.
How many other such regulations control DPA's?
Oh, there are so many. That's why I'm listening to you, and I'm like, can we just privatize this whole thing?
Right.
We're ready to go. We're ready to go.
Well, yeah.
I have just one question. Anytime we're dealing with an organization, we have to get with DPAA and say it's okay for these people to, check or to be there with us. Or is there any way we can just sign something that's blanket that says whoever wants to help can help, and they don't need to hold it back from anybody? I mean, I don't know that there's anything that I wouldn't want anybody to see, and the more eyes on it, the better. But the way that it's compartmentalized, like we have to release it. I mean, is there a blanket release?
Not that I've ever heard of, but I do know. Even I was supposed to go with Caroline McCall to her case review when she came up, and now that she's got pneumonia, she obviously won't do it. But they had not yet cleared Brad and me, and Brad is active duty DIA. They haven't even, and I said, they don't have to clear Brad, he can just show up. But they had to clear me coming in, and they hadn't done that as of yesterday, when she notified me. I don't know. Why wouldn't they want me there? I don't know. Especially since she's the primary next of kin, but probably because I tell the truth about their BS again. I don't know. Why else?
I mean, you still have the issue like Bo Bragg showing up with pig bones and things in there. So, yeah, these are human remains and coerce the families, just like George. I can't remember George's last name, but the family got basically blackmailed into paying money for what they thought were remains of their son. And so, yeah, we have had a history of abuse like that. And so the assurances end up being a blanket of assurances that we have on anything that becomes legal or law enforcement is that we can trust the system to do it correctly. And the vagaries of it, though, are create a need like Brad's saying, to have that, but we have to, there's a fine line, I think, of having to have trust in the system at some point. I won't defend all of it, but we have to have trust in the system to be able to say, okay, if you want to go do this and you want a flag draped coffin and a VA memorial bronze plaque, maybe you have to go through the system to do that.
I would add to that, yes, there has to be trust in the system, but there's also enough technology out there now, particularly when it comes to identification and DNA. DPA could be testing field side right now and making that determination if these are, never mind animal bones, whether they're Western or Asian or what the basic genealogy is for that before even attempting to make a repatriation. Things have evolved significantly, and they do so every single day. So there's more than enough resources out there, and they have the means and the capability to do it.
We know too that the U.S. government, through a partnership that I have with a company called Andy, they do on-site genetic DNA testing that is good enough for the U.S. government. So, they have the tools at their disposal, and if it's us having to bring that site side to be able to test, then we do that. I mean, it's but to your point, the chain of custody piece is important, and there needs to be oversight in that, 100%.
It cuts both ways.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
It does.
Yes, sir.
Anybody hungry? Other than you, you've already been eating.
Yeah, they said it was a working lunch, I just took it as a
Yeah.
That's the best kind of work.
The food is over there, I've been assured, so. Is it? Yep.
Yeah, taskforcegarrison.org, therig.org. I have business cards. Would love to help and speak to all of you. And I'll stick around for a little bit, but I do have to.
Yeah. You can't stay, but you can all come get the cards. They're both here and here. Not here.
Thank you.
Y'all might need to share money.
Yeah.
Sure. Mike's pretty high.
You can have it.
I want to do that. And are you going to want me to go ahead and put a slide?
Yeah, if you're gonna do it, it doesn't matter to me.
Yeah, no, there's
That's how you do it. See, I can't go outside now. I'm here with it. You never know when you're going to set. I recommend that watching whatever it's called.
It'd be a good one. I know that what I said, based on what he said, there should be information from the exact locations of that. Plus the other ones. Because he said there were 2 sites that did go there. So I don't think there's any need to go spend a lot of time looking for them.
Okay, we're gonna start again. They have our resident fire pilot will be able to give us an introduction of himself and start us off with this topic of we have achieving greater accounting results. So I think, Ed, is that it was this VSO symposium or council that we'd like to form up. What would be your desired outcome of that? What points would actionable things that you would hope to see from them?
Did you understand what he said? I didn't. Yes, I did.
Yeah.
I didn't understand. Okay.
You asking me?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
You are the world's greatest fighter. I am the world's greatest fighter pilot, no doubt about that. What I would like to see is the involvement of more veterans in this process. And there aren't very many of us left. But when you start getting involvement of veterans working with families, they assist those families in asking the right questions when they sit down for a briefing. And right now, it appears to me that DPAA is trying to push back on, well, they always have pushed back on veterans being involved. And I'm not sure why. And I ran into that in my very first experience with the first guy I was looking for. By the way, the reason I'm doing this, I have 3 friends I flew combat with in Vietnam that were not accounted for. And we found the first one.
it was because of some great archival research and going back and pushing hard, and we got his remains back. Are you showing the slides, or what are we doing?
Slides are up.
Oh, okay. Well, that's the first slide. I think that must be me, but I'm not. And by the way, I wrote a book about the recovery of this dude, and if anybody wants a signed copy for a mere $20, I'll sell it. The next slide is, you going to show the next one there?
It's up.
Okay, that's, I'm a child of the 60s, and Bob Dylan was my dude, and not dark yet, but it's getting there. It's really where we're at, folks. If we don't get this done now, and we don't get it done soon, it ain't going to happen. At least not for some of the people I'm working with. The kids that really knew their fathers. And right now there's still a lot of wives out there that I'm working with that need to resolve this thing. What's the next slide? Is that the Dave Dinan? I can't see it.
Yeah.
I think that's Dave Dinan. He was my roommate in Vietnam. He got shot down and killed. We went back and found his remains. Go to the next slide. This is what happens when you really bring a brother home. You get a chance to go to Arlington or somewhere and do a really great ceremony that our country does so well. And by the way, I'd like to thank both Ann and Brad were at that ceremony. And I made a statement at that ceremony, and I stand by it, that if this government ever puts the face of a woman on our currency, I vote for Ann Mills. Yeah, I said it. Next slide. I think this should be the two guys I'm still looking for. Is that what it is?
Yep.
Yeah. This is Ron Stafford and Chuck Caffarelli, and Ron Stafford and Pappy Kaler. It turns out that both these guys flew 105s with me out of Karate. And Stafford got shot down once while I was there, but he was rescued. He decided to go back and in an F-111, and he was shot down or disappeared off the Gulf of the coast of the Gulf of Tonkin in 1972. And let's see, what's on the next slide?
Hanoi briefing.
What is it?
The Hanoi briefing.
Oh, okay, yeah. So anyway, I decided I was going to go back and, well, I've already been to Pappy Kaler's site twice and had good results. Found new information for DPA. They did go back and check it out. I told them they were digging in the wrong place. They went back, checked it out, and sure as hell, they found a life support system for Pappy where I told them to look. And now for the last 3 years, I've been trying to get archival research out of them. Crickets, nothing. And I'm going to raise hell about it again tomorrow. At any rate, I decided I need to go to Vietnam and start looking for Stafford. And in order to do that, I also decided I was going to go ahead and have a nice crutch for that, so my wife would actually believe I had a good reason to go. So I volunteered to do this presentation at the University of Hanoi / Texas Tech archival research folks. And I gave a presentation about the importance of archival research. And believe me, as I've listened to what's going on today, I don't think right now there's anything more important than getting the facts, if we can get as many facts as we can. Those JFAs cost a hell of a lot of money, and a lot of them, they're going out there digging without any real good idea what they're digging for. But I actually believe that somewhere in the archival collection that the Vietnamese have, there's a lot of information that could tell us either who to talk to or where some of these guys may be buried or where they may have been lost. We've got to get that information if we can. So anyway, I went and talked to them about the importance of that, and I'm not sure it made any difference at all, but it's the way I feel. Next slide. is this at the beach?
Yeah.
Yeah. This fisherman, I was talking with Brad about it. When I got to, first of all, I tried to go to the village chief of the village where the guy was shot down or where he disappeared, and I couldn't find him. It was on a Saturday, and he was off lollygagging around. But the next day, I went back to the beach where the fishermen worked, and I found this fisherman and started asking him questions about what was going on over the past. He's 57 years old, and what's been going on over the last several years having to do with that accident. If you see where he is pointing toward the spot where I think that F-111 went in, and the reason I say it, the day before I'd been up on the beach where I know that Stafford went in, and this fishing village is just south of that, and he pointed at the same direction where I would have assumed it was. He also told me that he'd been diving on both that site and another site south of there in his youth. They've been down there looking for pieces of metal to bring up. He also said that 4 years ago, the district government had come in and apparently, he didn't say who it was, but he said somebody came in with tools and tried to cut up those airplanes. I guess the reason I want guys like Brad and the MIU to go in there and take a look at this is we don't have to send high-dollar pieces of equipment in to find those sites. These people already know where they're at. We just need to get over there and figure out what it is that's still there. And I think that F-111 cockpit is still intact, and I think if you pull that thing up and the capsule on it, you're going to find my buddy and his whistle. Anyway, next slide. Where am I at here?
Who else is out there?
What's that?
Who else is out there?
Oh, this is Dep 2?
Yeah.
Okay.
You're on the beach.
Oh, I'm still on the beach.
Yeah.
This is where the other second plane was. So, Brad, if you guys get over there, you maybe get a 2-for-1 because I got an idea that there are 2 sites. I have no idea what that second site is, but there's an aircraft out there somewhere. Next slide. This is my visit to Dep 2, Detachment 2. I think, isn't it?
Yes.
We're standing on the steps of Detachment 2, DPA site in Hanoi. Interesting visit. I think they're on our side, but I'm not 100% sure. Some of the people were very impressive, by the way.
Which one is Colonel Kim?
He's the one on my left.
Okay,
He's
the tan is black, so the navy blue shirt with the blue shirt.
The one on my right, I think, is a major, a Marine major, Rousseau. And, boy, he's a good dude. He is a really good dude, and I think he would be helpful. One of the things they told me while I was there, and I'm going to test them on it, they told me that in the near future, in the next couple months, they're going to be hiring an archival research person for their staff in Hanoi. And I said, well, who are we going to hire? He said, well, we've got applications coming in. And I asked both of the 2 kingpins there. I said, now, have you already been getting phone calls from other bureaucracies about who we need to hire? And they wouldn't answer. And I said, well, make sure you hire the right kind of person. Make sure you hire somebody, if you can, that speaks both languages and has experience in archival research. It's too important to do that and not bring in, don't bring in a person that doesn't know what the hell they're doing and expect on-the-job training. It's not what we need. Next slide. I think this is this the South Vietnam, is this the Vietnamese?
Ongoing underwater research.
Yeah, okay, ongoing underwater researches. These are the active pursuit cases along the Gulf of Tonkin. Believe me, DPA, and I didn't know this until I got involved with Ron Stafford. DPA is doing a terrible job pushing for these cases. Now, I understand that this year, and I hope I had something to do with, they're going to do searches for 10 sites in the Gulf of Tonkin, further north than this, but one of those sites is another family I've been working with, a Navy family, a guy flying A-7s crashed. And I hope they find it, or at least they find that site, and we go down and get him out of there. At any rate, one more slide. And what is this?
Getting Badger scientists involved.
This is, I had a brain fart. I was an electrical engineering student at the University of Wisconsin. I graduated in 1967, and I was part of the capstone project when I graduated. And I went to the University of Wisconsin, found this professor who was interested in doing underwater research, and I've been working with him for the last three semesters, trying to build a lightweight, cheap way to go search for wreckages in the Gulf of Tonkin. And every semester they get a little closer and a little closer. I've been trying to work with the partnership team and Rocky Gillette, trying to get them to take that thing over to either to Hawaii and work with the underwater team, or to take it to the Gulf of Tonkin. So far I'm getting a lot of pushback on that, but I think it's time that we find innovative ways to pick up the process, pick up the speed in this process. This is crazy. We're just sitting on our hands. We need more progress. I think the MIU is a great idea. Although we need one full-time, and we need 6 of them, and we need them going year-round and active following this stuff up. Because if we don't, a lot of families are going to pass away and be very disappointed because we didn't do the right thing. And the last slide, I think this is the last slide. This is Ron Stafford's family, and they visited me in Wichita a few years ago. They want Ron back. I want him back. I flew many missions with him, and he doesn't deserve to continue forever to lay in the bottom of the Gulf of Tonkin. I'm going to do everything I can to bring him home. And by the way, I'm an 83-year-old legally blind dude, but I ain't stopping. That's all I have as far as that. What's next?
Well, what's next is finding out what's next.
Can I ask Ed a question?
Sure.
So do you believe that one of really the biggest reason is monetary money for not going in and looking at these sites in the Gulf of Tonkin and these other sites? Do you think that it really just comes down to the almighty dollar?
I'm not sure. I'm not sure what the motivations are. I really don't. I'm not sure it's money. Although, is that what you're asking?
Yes.
I do think that DPA has decided they're going to hire these high-tech, very expensive underwater research firms like Scripps, and there's another one from Arizona. And I think it's not that hard. They've overdone it, but they're having to pay so much money for these. And I talked to the Scripps guy last year at Omaha, and I asked him what he was doing that summer. He said, nothing. I said, you do anything next year? He said, well, no, not right now. I don't think Scripps is. Do you know if Scripps is on site this year, Brad?
And we heard about them as well last year.
Yeah.
So this is where my question is coming from, is because they made such a big deal about Scripps and the other entities coming in, and yet nothing has come of it. And so
yeah. I don't know. Like I said, they are looking at 10 sites supposedly this summer, and I think it's ongoing right now. And like I say, I hope some of the pressure by the Navy people and Air Force people like me to get some results out of this underwater search, I hope somehow they're picking up the speed. They get it, because every time I go to one of these regional conferences or the one in DC, the Navy people stand up and scream. Are there Navy people here? With underwater losses? Okay, yeah. It's a disaster. And I know that Ann was one of the lucky ones because her brother was one that was actually found. I don't know that much about it. Ann talked about it this morning, but somehow, it ain't dark yet, but it's getting there, guys.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.